Welcome to Sacred Realms. It's a great day in Hyrule, y'all. Welcome to Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Lyndon Willoughby, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Willoughby. We made it back to the garage, Matt.
We did. Texas is notorious for many things. Bad politics, wide open skies, yellow roses, the Alamo, and roller coaster weather.
Yes.
And we are experiencing the roller coaster weather currently. It was 90 degrees on Monday. It was 35 degrees 2 nights ago, and it is currently 45 right now. And tomorrow is supposed to be 80. So, yay. And my sinuses are in joy.
This is just the life that we live, you know? This is part of our existence. There's no getting away from it. Just means that on podcast night, we have to be able to roll with things a bit because as much as we love our little recording courtyard, it is not protected from the elements. So yeah, when it's rainy like this, we gotta head inside. But it's okay. It feels nice out here. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. The garage is never bad.
No, it'll do just fine. How was your week, Matt?
Week's been good, man. It's been interesting. We are T-minus 25 days to wedding. So we're about to have a crazy recording schedule, trying to get us a little bit of a runway built up. I think we're planning on doubling or tripling up on episodes for the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
So, woo! This is going to be great.
You got to love that runway. It's great.
My fiance appreciates it. Also, the time difference in Maui is going to be hard to work with also. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely not asking you to make pod on your honeymoon. That's a bridge that we're not going to cross.
That's good. I would say no.
We're all very professional here, but that's too much. We would never have asked you of that, Matt.
Fair enough.
Well, you know what I love even more than triple recording in a week.
Tell me what you love more than triple recording in a week, and you can't say everything because that is a proper answer.
A lot of things, but very close to the tippy top of that pile. Like we're in the category of actual good things here, right?
Yeah,
things I actually like.
Yes.
Is welcoming a new guest onto the pod.
We don't have very many new guests, like new guests.
It's been a while
anymore. We got a good recurring cast of characters that we like to bring back, like Grey's Anatomy. Apparently, they never get rid of people unless they murder them, and we're not in the habit of murdering people.
Done. I really have to be clear.
Yeah, we've never murdered anyone that I'm aware of. So
if there's anyone that you haven't heard on the show in a while, they're fine. I think
we did nothing.
We didn't do it. Yeah.
So we're bringing in a new person, which is exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. And what makes it even better is that we're adding to our collection of wonderful people from the incredible web resource that is known as Zelda Universe. Tonight on the show, we are joined by Connor, also from Zelda Universe, friends with blood siblings, Josh and Cody, right?
Well, it is well known. Yes.
Yeah. Connor, presumably not a blood relative of Josh and Cody, but does still work at Zelda Universe. Connor, how you doing tonight?
I am doing very well. Thank you very much, and thanks for bringing me on. I am glad that I don't have to fear for my life. From you, anyway.
Yeah, we're not in the habit of murdering people, so you're safe. Congratulations.
Yes! Awesome. I would have, not a whole lot of things to worry about if I was murdered, but at least the dog would need some kind of taking care of.
Oh, we are big dog lovers, so we would make sure he was well taken care of.
We really should have that on our as like social headers, right? Like Sacred Realms, a Zelda Retrospective Podcast.
We don't do murder.
Yeah, likes Zelda, dislikes murder. Yeah, so maybe we should think about that, workshop that a little bit more.
It's a good marketing rebranding. Yeah,
exactly.
It's good.
Oh, you
Connor,
never know.
like I said, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really good just to be very plain about these things, right? Just make your stance known.
If I want to listen to a podcast, I want to be certain that I'm going to like the person, and I want to make sure that they're not going to up and kill me.
I think those are only fair things to request of your podcast hosts.
Agreed.
Yep, 10 out of 10, no notes, hard agree. Connor, again, like, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. And I guess for people who aren't familiar with who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Zelda Universe?
I certainly can. Connor Schultz is my fuller name, and I hail from a whole lot of different places. I've done a lot of moving in my life. I claim Detroit, Michigan as my home. And I am currently living in Tacoma, Washington, which is having worse weather than you all. It is 35 degrees, just above freezing, and it is pouring down rain.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, my coworkers in Seattle have been telling me about that all day long.
Man, we have a huge Sacred Realms presence in Seattle/Oregon, and like Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest loves us.
Yeah, we're pretty popular up there.
I would absolutely love to meet them because I moved here just in time for COVID to hit. So I don't know anybody here, and trying to get out has been murder.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, join the Discord community. You'll meet a lot of folks who
Maybe
live
I
up
need to
there.
do that.
Yeah.
Solid plug. I like to say that I've literally grown up with the Zelda franchise. The original Legend of Zelda was released in the United States a week after I was born. And I have played the series starting with the original since age 5. I did not beat the original until I was about age 17 for reasons that are obvious. And I do not have a Zelda game that I do not love to death. Currently with Zelda Universe, I run actually the Zelda Universe podcast. So this is a kind of setup that I'm actually very familiar with and happy to be a guest and not just managing and hosting it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think it's really appropriate that the streams are kind of crossing in this way, right? Like, obviously, the Zelda Universe YouTube channel has been like a really excellent place for us to kind of find more people and to get our stuff out on YouTube as well. But the Zelda Universe podcast has been around far longer than we have, and like with so much kind of just connective tissue between our show and Zelda Universe, it really felt inevitable that the great crossover would happen at some point. So I'm glad we're here living it.
Yeah, I took over the podcast early last year. Before that, I was doing features, articles, and that's kind of the big stuff. I started up with ZU 2018, 17, something like that.
Okay, so you came on board in the immediate post Breath of the Wild phase of life.
Yes. Right around there. I had started making video essays that's on my own YouTube channel about Zelda, and when I heard that they were looking for features writers, I sent them my Link's Awakening video, and I was like, here's my audition. They said, done. So like, perfect.
And just like that, you got in with a pretty excellent group of people, as we've come to understand it so far.
I've had a great time. I do know Cody and everybody, especially now. I've done a whole lot of ZU-thon every year, and it's great times.
Yeah. So when I guess the ZU podcast is kind of the big thing that y'all do over on that team. Is your role kind of bigger than that even, or is that kind of the main thing, just like the ZU podcast and keeping the wheels spinning on that?
That's the main thing that I do at this point, is keeping the podcast running. I also have taken the head commentator lead person for it. So every time we get an episode put together and out, I am part of the hosting duties and introducing everybody to the different segments and things that we're talking about. We just finished a segment where we discussed the newly announced Zelda movie that should be coming out probably in the next, as soon as we get done editing it, in the next couple of weeks.
Nice, very nice. I mean, without cutting into the material on the Zelda Universe podcast at all, give me a gut check. Like, where are you at with this whole thing? Because we've talked about it on this show before, and our reactions have kind of have ranged from highly underwhelmed and cynical to, kind of very neutral, all the way up to like unrestrained hype and joy. And so it's a whole spectrum of reactions, really.
The reactions that we had during our roundtable discussion was very insightful. A lot of people who were on there have great insights into movie production, sound design, all those kinds of different things. Personally, I fully understand that video games are now being taken with a little bit more seriousness and care in their movie productions. The Sonic movie, the Mario movie have been really great, and other ones connected to that, showing that these things that we love are being treated with by people who also love these franchises. I am scared to flipping death that they're going to screw this thing up. And they have to prove me that they know what they're doing with it, because the moment they said live action, I was like, oh, nope, they've screwed it up.
Yeah, no, they're already off on their back foot for sure. That was an interesting choice.
Yeah, our major discussion involved how are you going to make this feel like Zelda, because Zelda has a very specific atmosphere that the franchise has been able to hold on to for these 35 plus years. And if you can't nail that, then you're just going to have another Game of Thrones knockoff instead of Zelda.
Yeah. No, that would be highly disappointing.
Yeah, the character of the thing is really what it's going to live or die by. And it's tough, because I think for me personally, the Mario movie gave me a fair amount of confidence that at the very least, Nintendo can be trusted to safeguard the feel and vibe of their IP, right? Mm-hmm. Even if Mario wasn't a very deep movie-going experience, not that I personally think that it needed to be.
Agreed.
But yeah, right. So it's like I there's some positivity there. Like I'm leaving myself some room for optimism, but I also love Zelda more than Mario, right? So
very much so. And that's the kinds of different tones that you get with Mario. There is a much higher level of whimsical woohoo stuff that's attached to it. While Zelda, while there is still that kind of level, there is a level of whimsy and childlike joy to it. It's still a bit more of a serious franchise. So you get that balance of what you're looking for. And I'm completely with you. Like I said, I grew up with this franchise. It is my baby. And anything that they do with it to try and make it something quote unquote cooler or whatever is just going to destroy it.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Good. Well, I won't cut into that topic any further, because like I said, you've got your own stuff coming out about that, and we don't want to be cannibalizing all of your material for the Zelda Universe podcast.
And we're notorious for having over 2-hour episodes anyway, when we're pretty to the point. So let's
that's sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, I'm already on the West Coast. It may be past 9:00 for you. It is 7 for me. We're fine.
Hey, there you go.
Well, we would have to work pretty hard to like top a Cody Davies or a Max Nichols length episode here. So.
Accurate. I know.
Those are the all-time greats, just in terms of length, if nothing else, although they are excellent episodes of podcast too. So you said that you started with the original, The Legend of Zelda. You came back to it and beat it way later. What was your history with the Zelda series like between those things? I mean, were you kind of like, was there a point where you jumped in and were actively keeping up with each new release, or were you lapsed for a while and then came back to it?
Zelda has always been a part of my life. As far back as I can remember, we had that Nintendo Entertainment System. I don't know when my parents bought it. I don't know if it was for my brother or for both of us or whatever, but we've just always had it. And it was always a thing that I, particularly with the first 2 games, I just kept trying to beat them, never did. And then A Link to the Past came out, and that, to my knowledge, this could very well be revisionist history, but I'm fairly certain it's the first game I ever beat on my own. And so that was oh my gosh, this is a great adventure and I can do stuff with this. And then Ocarina of Time came out, and that fully cemented my second home, as it were, in Hyrule. And it's been nothing but that pretty much ever since. Even I was 8 or 9 at the time. I didn't have much money to buy anything my own, but I was certainly begging for when Majora's Mask came out. I'm fairly certain I'm the one that purchased Oracle of Ages and then Seasons, and then it's just kind of grown and blossomed on and on and on.
So one thing that we've noticed a lot about our recurring cast of guests is that there seems to be, for the most part, a situation where everybody aligns a little bit more closely to either the top-down convention of Zelda game or the 3D ones, the console ones, right? That's not a hard and fast rule, but what I've kind of noticed is that most people we have on tend to really be much more into one versus the other. Is that the case for you, or would you consider yourself like a true Zelda omnivore? Like anything will do?
There has not been a single Legend of Zelda game that I have not loved to death. I love them all. There may be abstract deciders that will put one above another in any kind of official ranking, but I remember when tier lists were suddenly becoming really popular and people were throwing out tier lists of Zelda games. I just went in there, I replaced the letter rankings, I just had one category, and I just put, I love them all, they are my children, and I love them all to death, and it just threw them all in there. So when it comes to my actual favorites, my top ones tend to be the 3D ones, but I think that's primarily because they are much more story driven. And I love a immersive, wonderful story, but it doesn't take long before that listing gets into those, into the top down ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you and Matt would probably have quite a lot to talk about in a Skyward Sword season, for instance, right? Because like we love the plot and the lore of the Zelda series, and Matt especially. That's kind of your big thing, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I fancy myself a amateur Zelda historian of the lore, not the real world history of the Zelda games. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Skyward Sword is my number one. I love it.
Hey, finally, someone who's got good taste.
It is my favorite game, period. And I cry twice every single time I play it.
Let's go.
Man, you just made Matt's night, and I can't emphasize that enough. He is thrilled right now.
This is my people.
Yes.
Suck it, Max Nichols. I love you so much. I'm sorry I said that. I just get a little heated.
I trust Max to take that in the spirit in which it was given. Yeah.
I don't begrudge anybody for getting flustered with whatever control issues that you have with whatever game that it happens to be. Skyward Sword, Phantom Hourglass, whatever. I barely have ever had those issues, and I just get so enveloped in Hyrule and in Zelda that any frustrations I have just kind of melt away. I'm also...
That's nice.
I wouldn't say...
I wish I could say that.
I wouldn't say I'm a massive lore enthusiast, but I do tend to hang on to lore because it's connected to the story and everything that's connected to it.
Sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. Speaking more specifically about Spirit Tracks, I mean, one of the reasons that we were encouraged to reach out to you for this season of the podcast is because... we were talking to Josh and Cody and a few other people, and we were realizing that unless we did something very intentional about it, this was going to be just like a nonstop Spirit Tracks like hit fest over the course of a season of pod, right? Positive opinions were not forthcoming necessarily. And so what we really wanted to do was try and find somebody who had a positive perspective on Spirit Tracks and who genuinely enjoys this game. My first impression of you is that you are a very, very positive person. And in your own words, there's no Zelda game that you dislike and you really love all of them. So let's talk about Spirit Tracks more specifically. Where are you at historically with this game? Both your history with it when you played it for the first time and all that, but also just how do you esteem it, I guess, in the canon of Zelda?
I think just like everybody else, when Spirit Tracks was first announced, I had a lot of confusion because trains was the most advanced technology that we've ever really worked with. And it was very strange to see Link driving a train. The opening screen where I saw Ghost Zelda already just filled me with curiosity because I had no idea what the heck was going on. Is this like some ancient Zelda that we're working with? Did like Tetra come back? She's going to do something or about. And then she gets straight up murdered. It's like, what? Dude, I have never failed so hard as the hero ever.
It's definitely not been a thing that we've had to deal with before where we straight up just allow Zelda to die. So you're right. That sets a very specific tone for the introduction of this game for sure. But we've been, to be honest, so far, I think that's been one of the high points for us has just been like the change in dynamic, right? Between Zelda as a character and Link, and then Zelda as a companion, especially. I don't think Matt or I have had anything negative to say about the way that any of that has unfolded so far. But
agreed. But Zelda in particular is the most unique aspect about this game is we spend more time with her in this than any other game. Potentially, not just percentage-wise, because she's with us for nearly the entire game, but because of that, maybe in terms of straight up length, actual time spent with her, which makes it a whole lot easier to grab onto her. I'd say she's probably my second favorite Zelda.
Who's your first favorite?
Yeah, I was
Zelda?
gonna say this is the part where we have to ask who your first favorite is.
Skyward Sword.
Okay, sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
well, I mean, okay.
It's tough to argue. It really is.
It's Skyward Sword, Spirit Tracks, and Breath of the Wild. Those are the top three.
I think that's yeah.
I don't know that a truly compelling case could be made for
anything
else besides those three, but yes, there they are. And I mean, here I am invoking the tier list again, right? But Spirit Tracks, where does that land, generally speaking?
When I finally sat down and put my order together, this was right before Tears of the Kingdom came out, so that's not on the list, and it's still not on the list because I need to give it time to bake before I put it in. But as things are currently stand, Spirit Tracks is number 7.
Okay, wow. So in the top half.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Just without obviously spoiling the game or anything, could you give us a few quick reasons as to what it's doing to merit a spot that high up? Because, I think even a lot of people who would say there are truly we say there are no bad Zelda games, but for people who would say there aren't even any rough Zelda games, like they're all masterpieces or whatever, I think most of those people would still objectively put Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass somewhere close to the bottom of the pile. And I'm interested to hear your reasons for why you enjoy it as much as you do.
Spirit Tracks is, because it's a handheld game as it is, it's wonderfully compact. So you're not looking for a massive 50-hour experience. And so it's just a fun little thing. And the tone of the game itself reflects that. It is a cute, fun little experience that still hits all of the major notes of what you expect from a Zelda game. Princess Zelda herself, like I said, is just absolutely adorable, and I love all the character interactions, all the things she gets to do. The music is top-notch, especially the overworld theme. And as far as the DS is concerned, I think it worked with the mechanics exceptionally well. I know that there's a lot of consternation in regards to the flute. I think...
And just the microphone in general for us, right?
Yeah, so there's some technical issues there. It's kind of funny. I was going over my playthrough that I have on my YouTube channel for the game, and it's really funny to watch because since I was streaming the whole thing, I was using the Wii U port, which everyone hates even more. But it's funny, you can just hear me into the thing because you got to get enough air to actually get it to work, which is really funny. I remember I was playing it on a plane one time, and because of the pressurized air in the plane, I actually couldn't get it to work properly because the mic was always getting air forced through it. And so anytime I'd blow out the whirlwind, it was just automatically just start spraying wind everywhere.
Yeah, it's so when we were playing Phantom Hourglass a few months ago, I had a similar experience. I was playing it on the plane, actually on my way to Seattle, and so I was in the lead up to, I think it was the Wind Temple. I don't remember which one exactly, but there's a part where you have to activate a bunch of windmills by kind of shouting at them or blowing into the microphone or whatever, and it was super easy because all I had to do was just like be standing in their vicinity, and the game was basically interpreting that as me like blowing into the microphone. So it was like a total gimme mechanic, but yeah, hilarious. It's an analog to like when you're trying to play a gyro game in a car, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's just never going to work, right? You're never going to be like true center with that kind of motion control situation. But, yeah. So anyway, I mean, those are good points, right? Like especially if you're not hung up on the touch controls of everything, then I can see why a game like Spirit Tracks would start creeping its way up the list for you a little bit.
When you're looking at the production of a video game, you of course have to look at the mechanics of how that is created and how that is able to provide a seamless transition to put you into the position of the protagonist, particularly in a role-playing game, which is essentially Zelda in this kind of regard. And so there is a measure of technical response that you need in order to make it a good game. Where I differ in that is I am much more emotionally invested in the characters and the story that's on screen more than I would say your typical Zelda player, so that when the mechanics get me hung up, I am less likely to get frustrated at the mechanics and the game, and instead look at the story and the progression as a way to continue to take me through it. We could talk about how that works with Skyward Sword all we want to, but we can do that if when Skyward Sword happens.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and for me, story, character development, etc., play a really huge role as well. Part of our challenge to ourselves as we've been doing this podcast is to try to be objective about the game as a whole and rank it and discuss its pros and cons and try as much as possible to remove rose-tinted glasses from nostalgia and whatever. So, I definitely see where you're coming from about that. And to a large part, I agree. I think what we'll talk about and what we generally talk about is more, or try to be more objectively about like, yeah, this works well, this doesn't work well, etc. So, but I applaud that ability to push past things you don't like and still find the things you like and focus on those. I wish I had that in more areas of my own personal life.
Yep.
It's
well, and
possible.
in fairness, it's like, oh, sorry, go Connor.
No, it's still possible to recognize and take into account the things that are not working well. We just spend time making fun of the microphone and how that can be frustrating, particularly like when you're trying to learn the songs with the flute. If you do not have a good sense of rhythm, that thing is going to mess you up completely, especially with how clunky those controls can be sometimes. You can recognize that things are frustrating with the mechanics and still enjoy the game as a personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I guess last question within this whole category of things. When is the last time you actually played this game?
I last played this when I recorded it for my channel, which was a couple of years ago. Yes, it was in the middle. That's right. I remember. We can actually kind of connect this to the stuff we're going to be talking about today. There's a point where you're at the Goron City, and there's a Goron who can't get into his house. And so you do what is necessary to help him get into his house. And he's like, oh, this is great. I am never leaving my house again. And this was in the middle of the pandemic. I had been stuck in my home for almost a year. I was like, oh, you poor soul. How little do you know?
Yeah, that lasted all of about a couple of months for Lyndon and I, and then we started this podcast.
Yeah, I was
out
gonna
of
say.
a sense of cabin fever.
Yeah, you're looking at the result of a pandemic flight of fancy here, which has endured well beyond that. So
I started streaming on Twitch because of the pandemic.
There you go. See, we all got new hobbies. Some people baked bread. Some people started podcasts, and some people streamed on Twitch. There you go.
Well, thanks for giving us a rundown on your history with this game and the series as a whole, Connor. Obviously, we're going to talk a bit more specifically about some other Spirit Tracks stuff this week. We've got an interesting chunk of the game to get into here today, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. It's so funny too, because I think I may have been making it sound like I was taken aback by what I would consider to be the kind of idiosyncratic quality of a little bit of your ranking compared to other people we've talked to, right? As Matt throws his microphone across the table.
How dare you!
I knocked it over with my arm. I apologize.
It is not that big a deal, Matt. It's okay. It will be fine.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But it's funny because Matt and I mean, part of this whole podcast situation is that we keep an active ranking of all the games that we've played so far. And a lot of people consider our list to have some idiosyncrasies baked into it.
One recurring spat that happens on our Discord is currently happening again, which is, why in the world do you rank Skyward Sword so high on your podcast?
Because Skyward Sword is awesome, and if you don't think so, even if it's not your favorite, if you don't think it's awesome, you have no soul.
Oof.
Wow.
Oof.
Well, there we go. I think that's bringing a little bit more fire to it than even we ever have necessarily. I can't say that I disagree. Our list as it stands right now of the games we played is so it starts at number 12 and goes up to number 1. This is Spirit Tracks is the 13th game we played. It goes from Zelda 2, Phantom Hourglass, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess, A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, which we still kind of feel bad about that one. We probably would have swapped those.
Yes.
Number 6 is the Minish Cap. Number 5 is Link's Awakening. Number 4 is the Wind Waker. Number 3 is Skyward Sword. Number 2 is Ocarina of Time, and number 1 is Breath of the Wild. So that's where we're at right now. So yeah, we got a lot of flack for the Wind Waker Skyward Sword arrangement as well.
Gotcha.
We did indeed.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Wind Waker
it's our list.
8 on my list.
Woo, that's low.
So it's Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Spirit Tracks, Wind Waker. That's the top 8. Then we get to Majora's Mask, Age of Calamity, Oracle of Ages, Hyrule Warriors, Link Between Worlds. I might put Link Between Worlds up a little higher now because I just played it again last year. And I'm currently in the middle of trying to 100% Hyrule Warriors, which is going to take me 3 years. And it probably will go down. Then Minish Cap, Phantom Hourglass, Seasons, Legend of Zelda, Four Swords Adventures, Adventure of Link, Triforce Heroes, Four Swords, the original is at the bottom for the sheer fact that you needed friends to play that with.
And you can now not play it almost anywhere.
And now you cannot play it at all. I have played it to completion. Thank you, DS random port that you gave me. But yeah.
One day, maybe we'll find a way to get around to it. But that is not this day. This day, we get into the housekeeping.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Gotta love that podcast format segue there. But anyway, great little intro, Connor, and more Spirit Tracks to come here in just a minute. You know what we got to do before we get into the housekeeping, though, Matt?
We got to do our favorite ad hoc bit, which is, or it's not ad hoc, it's recurring.
It is. Yeah.
Off-topic bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Whiskey bit.
Whiskey bit. We love Whiskey bit.
We do love Whiskey bit.
Actually, coming off of Margarita bit last week for National Margarita Day.
Margarita bit was fun.
We're putting the mariachi music away for this week, and we're getting back to whiskey. Matt, you brought this auspicious bottle that's sitting on the table, so I'm going to let you tell everyone what we're drinking tonight.
I did. So Lyndon supplied the cigars. I supplied the whiskey. So our dram this evening is straight from Kentucky. It is Eagle Rare Bourbon, which very hard to find for some reason outside of the Buffalo Trace Distillery, which is where it comes from. It is 10-year aged bourbon, and the secret about Eagle Rare is it's just Buffalo Trace that they aged a little bit longer and put in a fancy bottle. So if you ever see Eagle Rare going for $120 or even higher than $50, don't buy it because it's only worth about $30. Don't waste your money.
Eagle Rare, everyone's favorite $120 bottle bottle of
$30 whiskey.
bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be fooled by the aftermarket prices. Wait until you can find a bottle at your local liquor store at MSRP. It's between $30 and $40 at most places. And you know what? For $30 to $40, it's dang good bourbon. It's very delicious.
Absolutely. It's one that a lot of people who are like peripherally aware of bourbon culture will probably have heard of. And yes, it is a very good one. So cheers to Eagle Rare.
And cheers to Spirit Tracks.
Cheers to getting that bottle of Eagle Rare for MSRP. Good on you.
Yeah, there we go.
So as someone who does not drink at all, I actually have also heard of Buffalo Trace at the very least, because before living in Tacoma, I did live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, there you go. That's cool.
I was going to say, kind of hard. I feel like just via osmosis, right? Like it's kind of in the air. Bourbon's in the air in Kentucky. So
you're surrounded by it. You drive along the freeway, and it seems like every other exit, particularly when you get out past the cities, it's visit this distillery, visit this distillery.
Well, that's fair.
There's a literal bourbon trail.
Oh, I know.
Trust us, we know.
We want to go on it very badly.
Really want to go to the Bourbon Trail one day. One day we might make that happen. This is really good, Matt. It tastes like 10-year-old Buffalo Trace.
Yes, no doubt.
Good stuff.
All
right, y'all. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the housekeeping and then dive right into the episode. If you didn't know, Sacred Realms is a weekly re-examination of The Legend of Zelda, one little slice at a time. Sacred Realms drops every Wednesday and is available on all major podcast networks. Every week, we play a new section of a Zelda game, and then we sit down here to talk and to drop our hot takes. If that sounds fun to you, please head over to Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to leave us a review. 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, and they have a chance to get a shout-out here on the show. If you want more Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod and get access to our Discord channel, listener mail, vote on what game we play next, and much more. Additionally, one of the benefits that Master Sword patrons and above get is that we read their names every week here on the Ye Old Show. Those legendary individuals are Naughty Nexus, Freddy, Brandon, Shriequill, Joseph, Nintendo, Adam, Sakura Sky, Art, Jeremy, Dante 2, Tom, Andy, Billy, Connor, Rachel, Shepherd Street, Matthew, Chris, Daniel, Fallout 907, Kelso, Chris, Tiffany, The Star, Patrice, Stephanie, Il Maestro himself, Darknuck, who's going to be having more music come out soon. He just likes to just string us along with new music.
Yeah, but they're all good. So
they're all amazing.
We're here for it.
I'm always chasing that Darknuck Spotify dragon. Brian, George, Mike, Dylan, Lennon, Kolku, Rowan, Josh, Nick, Dante1, Gep, Brittany, Davey, Haru, The Mighty, Derek, Albert, Mark, Andy, Cameron, Ben, Daniel, Nick D_TV, Hyrule Interviews, aka Maximum Nichols, Garrett, and Drew. These are the most legendary of individuals. And I would load a giant block of ice up onto a train and drive around in a giant maze-like square of railroad tracks with any of them any day of the week.
Yeah, sure. That sounds like fun. Honestly, I've ridden on remarkably few trains in my life, and I have always wanted to do one of those like passenger car trains that's like a cruise but on a train.
So did you see Max and I talking about this in the Discord
I did,
today?
and that's why I bring it up is because I just want to do one of those so bad. Like a train tour around Scotland would be so much fun. Go see all the Scotch distilleries. That's just like absolute bucket list trip. So
there's one that I found one time and spent a lot of time on the website, and so now it's in my ad algorithm.
Oh no!
Right?
Oh yeah. That's hard to ignore.
No, yeah, for sure. So now the internet thinks that I am of the means and opportunity to go on an Andean, like South American, like Peru, Peruvian Andes,
which you are neither of the means nor the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, no,
it's cool to look at.
Absolutely not. But yeah, it looks awesome. It's like
fun.
a 5-star hotel experience through the Andes, right? And
that soun's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe when I'm like 40 or something.
That's like not that far away for you.
Oh shit! Why you gotta do that to me? Why you gotta do me like that, bro?
You're less than a decade away from that. You might want to push that out a bit to 50 or something.
I hate you.
I have slept on trains, but it was not in any kind of my brother and I went backpacking across Europe back in 2007. That was a long time ago, and it was really, really fun. And we would save on places we would stay by taking trains through the night from one country to the next and sleep on the train.
That's smart travel tips right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I wasn't pressed for time, I would absolutely prefer to get places via train as opposed to flying.
You hate
I hate
flying.
I hate flying so much. But yeah, no, trains, they sound great. Want to do that someday.
Yeah, amen.
Speaking of trains, Matt,
We got some Spirit Tracks to talk about today.
Choo-choo.
Segue.
This week I really embraced the like pulling the choo-choo cord in time with the music while I was kind of putzing around on the map.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it elevated the experience for me in a very meaningful way. Of course, every week we get into the Sacred Realms Rundown, which is a 6-part analysis of what we played this week and the feelings that it made us feel. This week we are covering Spirit Tracks Chapter 4, dealing primarily with the Fire Realm and the Fire Temple. Part 1 of the Sacred Realms Rundown is, as always, the plot recap, this week read by Matt.
Back on the open ocean, we set our sights to the nearby Tower of Spirits. With another floor restored to its rightful place, we have access to the next section containing the rail map to our next region and temple. The trip back is short, and Angine is there as always to congratulate us on our success in the ocean region. The next area that we need to visit is the fiery mountains north of the tower, where we will find the fire sanctuary and temple. We make our way up the stairs to the next set of floors to see what challenges the tower has to throw at us this time. Zelda is in high spirits as we enter the next set of rooms, and honestly, given the success we've had so far, her confidence is contagious. We set off to find the rail map and quickly discover a new type of enemy to complicate our traversal of the tower. Little flying orbs covered in eyes patrol the area and shriek in alarm if they spot us. As soon as they sound the alarm, a phantom unfailingly appears out of nowhere to attack us. It seems that we have a new teleportation power to contend with, so we maneuver around the tower with more caution than usual. Anytime we see an eyeball orb, we make sure to stun it with our boomerang or whip before it sounds the alarm so that we can make our way in peace. The tower is a lot more tricky than ever before, requiring us to use all our skill, guile, stealth, and items to make our way around the area to find the Tears of Light. The tears power up our sword and allow Zelda to take control of one of the teleporting phantoms, which she is understandably gleeful about. Much of the next few floors is spent figuring out how to get ourselves, or Zelda, into areas that are otherwise blocked off. Sand traps, bottomless pits, and other obstacles abound, but Zelda's warping ability and some handy platforms that allow us to exchange places make traversal possible. The hardest challenges comes at the top couple of floors, where we have to lure 2 enemy phantoms into a sand pit with an eyeball, and then use the same ball to allow Zelda to teleport to us and activate a second switch. On the top floor, Zelda has to emulate the path of a neighboring phantom to activate some interesting tiles in a specific pattern, but doing this opens the door to the top. When we finally reach the map room, we claim the fire rail map for ourselves and partially restore the spirit tracks into the mountainous region of northeastern Hyrule. Before we can leave the room with our prize, a familiar and dreadful voice rings out across the room. Byrne appears out of a bright flash of light, stalking toward us, furious about our interference in restoring the tracks and the effect that it has had on the plans to resurrect Malladus. As he advances on us and Zelda, menacing in his height and with his mechanical arm, he raises his claw-like appendage to strike us down. Before he can, another voice rings out across the room, this one more familiar and stern in its authority. Angine has ascended the tower and now sits behind us in the doorway of the rail map room. For a wonder, Byrne stops cold and turns to face the old woman approaching the platform. Angine begins to scold him, telling him that she had a premonition that this day would come on the very day that he chose to leave the tower, and that as much as she tried to correct his errant ways, he was never a very good listener. We come to discover that Byrne was, long ago, Angine's very own apprentice, meant to take her place in the Tower of Spirits as its guardian sage. Instead, Byrne chose to leave and cast his lot with Malladus, because in all the long years of service to the spirits of good, they had never done anything to increase his own personal power. Byrne has obviously grown in power in his service to Malladus, and he intends to stop us before we can restore the rest of the tracks and the temple. So Angine does the only thing she can. She sends us away with her magic and stays behind to stall Byrne. As we land in the main room of the tower, falling to the ground from somewhere near the ceiling, we come crashing to the horror of leaving Angine alone to face Burn. But there's not else we can do besides accept and honor the sacrifice that she made, so we quickly board the spirit train and set off to the northeast mountains of Hyrule. The mountain range is home to a large volcano, which of course decides that now is the best time to start erupting and belching molten rocks all over the tracks and surrounding countryside. We have to use the cannon on the train to keep the track clear as we steam towards the local village of the Goron people. Once we arrive, we find that the eruption has caused lava flows in their village to erupt, blocking access to their homes, shops, and the majority of the village. The locals direct us to a nearby path that leads to a lake of lava. On the path somewhere is Kargaron, the mountain goddess's messenger. They're hopeful that he will know what to do in order to calm the mountain and reopen the way into the village. We set off up the path the villagers indicated, dodging an alarming number of boulders, swinging over pits of lava, fighting cannibalistic plants, and engaging in various other death-defying feats to reach the priest. Once we do, he tells us that the fire sanctuary has been blocked from them by the recent eruptions, and only the village elder knows the secret path to reach it. He suggests that we go back to the village together where we can discuss how to reach the elder safe from the mountain's wrath. Back at the village, the priest tells us that we need to bring something incredibly cold to cool the lava flow blocking the path into the village. In order to do that, the local Gorons attach a freight car to the back of the spirit train for us. Kargoron then tells us to go and find the material we need and bring it back quickly so that we can save the village and meet the elder. We know of only one place that can provide items of such coldness as to cool off lava, so we drive quickly back to the Anuki village in the Snow Realm. We find the local ice maker there, who of course doesn't have any ice and can't currently make any. He asks that we take him to a nearby clear spring of water so that he can make the mega ice that the village exports. Apparently, the village spring was corrupted by an ice shoe that fell into it, rendering the water too gross to be used for ice of any kind. We agree to take him to the spring to the east on the condition that the first batch of mega ice he creates goes with us to Goron Village. With the terms agreed to, we make the short jaunt over to the spring and let the Anuki work his ice-making magic in peace. He tries to charge us an outrageous 25 rupees just to load the ice onto the freight car, but after some haggling, he agrees to the original deal of handing over the ice for free. He tells us to be careful while transporting it, and that if we go anywhere too hot, it will melt, of course, and we set off back to the mountains. Along the way back to Goron Village, we're forced to detour all the way around to the north side of the mountain because of a dark train that is posted up at the village's entrance. On the northern slope of the mountains, we spend what feels like an eternity dodging more dark trains while trying to make our way to the village. Eventually, we arrive at Goron Village with enough ice left to cool off the lava stream and open the way for everyone to return home. We head straight to the Elder's hut, where we meet the old wizened man himself. Normally, the Goron people wouldn't allow us into the fire sanctuary, but since our actions have saved the village, they've decided to unofficially adopt us into their tribe, and therefore will grant us special dispensation to access their sacred places. The Elder shows us the way to the fire sanctuary, which is literally just the back door of his hut, which is wide open. We thank him and head off to find our next Locomo. The journey to the fire sanctuary is not easy, as the path is strewn with more man-eating plants, likes, pits of lava, missing bridges, and falling boulders. But in due course, we activate enough bridges and prune enough dangerous foliage to reach the sanctuary. After solving a quick brain teaser about the statues guarding the door to the sanctuary, we enter the blazing chamber to find the guardian of the fire temple. Embros is an extremely energetic and flamboyant Locomo, very much unlike his more elderly compatriots. He speaks often of passion and heart, and is happy to help us open the way to the fire temple. We play the required duet to open the way, and watch as the rail map shines brightly with renewed magic. Before we can reach the temple, however, Embros tells us that we will need to secure 3 keys to unlock the door. The keys were taken by monsters that now fly around the mountain, and he suggests that we speak to the local villagers to get advice on how to best deal with the beasts. With that, we head back to the village and begin questioning the folks that we can find. Most of them don't seem to know much about the monsters, but one Goron passes on the knowledge that the monsters can be stunned by one short noise followed by a longer one. Thinking of our train whistle, we board the spirit train and make our way to the mountain tracks leading to the temple, on the hunt for some flying key-stealing monsters. The monsters end up being enormous snurglars, which resemble flying elephants. There are 3 of these pests flying around the mountainside, each with a key grasped firmly in their trunk. As we approach them, they hover briefly in the air, deciding between attacking the train or fleeing. We attempt to stun one of them with the train whistle, blasting it like the Goron told us, with one short one followed by a longer one, but we must have gotten the timing wrong because the snurglar flees the scene quicker than any creature of its size should be able to. Thus begins the hunt for the 3 keys, and with each snurglar we find, we try to stun it. Eventually, we get the timing right and are able to blast the unlucky beast with the train's cannon. The key falls to the ground for us to collect, and we continue our search for the other 2. With each key that we free, the snurglar carrying it decides to follow us around and try to steal its bounty back, causing us to more or less be continuously yanking the train whistle and blowing them out of the sky. Finally, we get all 3 keys and the way to the fire temple is opened at last. The fire temple is suffused with the elemental heat of the volcano it resides within. The very stones seem to give off heat like a sauna, and the enemies that are within have adapted to their environment, taking the danger of the heat and using it against us. Some undead Stalfos ambush us as we make our way around the first floor, but using the whip and our sword, we take care of them easily. We have to navigate around the floor, avoiding some dangerous pitfalls and fire keys. Passage to the east side of the floor is blocked by a lava flow, so we have to find a way to get a stone platform large enough to be used as a place to stand on to plug up the lava spout. The way to the second floor can only be opened by hitting 2 switches simultaneously, and we have to open large doors hiding those switches from view on either side of the room. Up on the second floor, we find a cool minecart and some old railways that still function. Using the minecart, we begin to explore the next floor, finding some treasure chests along the way. Using the boomerang, we can hit switches that open up new paths for the cart, and by doing so, we get the small key that opens the path to a new part of the temple. In this new area, we are accosted by an enormous turtle creature with a blue jewel on its head. The turtle goes into its shell as soon as we lash out it with our sword, and it begins to spin rapidly before throwing itself at us. We narrowly avoid the large spinning shell, and as we're avoiding the reptile, we see 2 black shapes moving along the walls of the room. These black orbs are crackling with electricity, so we avoid them at all costs. While the turtle continues to pursue us, it accidentally collides with one of the electric balls and receives a nasty shock. Its head pokes out of the shell, allowing us the chance to smack its head at last. As the turtle recovers, it re-enters its shell and begins pursuing us once more around the room. We carefully navigate it back into the path of the shocking orbs and slash away at its exposed head once more. After another round or 2 of this, the turtle is defeated, and we claim the bow and arrow from the chest that appears in the room. We continue our exploration of the temple, using our new bow to fell enemies and solve puzzles alike. Many areas in the temple aren't immediately able to be reached by the bow, but some handy devices scattered around the area make it possible to redirect arrows, allowing us to shoot them around corners at hidden targets. Many of the puzzles blocking our path require us to get inventive with these arrow redirectors, moving them to new areas, changing their orientation, and combining 2 or more in sequence to hit distant objects. We even have to do a trick shot of shooting 2 targets at once by using multiple arrow redirectors while standing on a lava platform. As we continue exploring deeper into the temple, we eventually find the big key, but it is on an unreachable platform, and the door to the boss room is only accessible via minecart tracks. We have to get the boss key into one of the minecarts and ourselves into the other, and direct both carts around the tracks at the same time. There are several switches which have to be activated at exactly the right time, or else the key, or ourselves, will be thrown into the lava pit below. After several attempts, we finally make it to the boss door with the key and open it to find whatever menace hides behind it. The basement level we find behind the door is an enormous circular room with a pit of lava covering most of the floor. The ceiling is scores of feet above us, rising in a cylinder like a mine shaft. and around the walls circle a massive continuous minecart track. In the center of the lake of lava is a pile of stone at least as large as our house in Aboda village, and as we look around the room and our surroundings, the stones begin to glow and move. The stones rise up high into the air and they form the rough shape of a humanoid body with massive arms and a huge head. Along the monster's body glow pockets of magma like heartbeats in the stone. The giant raises its stony fists and bellows at us, prepared to squash and scorch us into oblivion for entering its lair. Kragma, the lord of the lava in this volcano, begins his furious attacks with colossal slams of his fists into the small platform that keeps us safely out of the lake of lava. With every slam of his fist, the ground shakes and huge stones fall from the walls of the cavern. We see off to the side a minecart poised on the tracks, ready to take us up the spiraling mass of metal on the walls of the cave. The way to reach the cart is blocked by lava spouts, so we try to use the crushed remains of one of the boulders to create a walkway for ourselves. We get on the cart and begin circling, glad to be free of the crushing presence of Kragma, but unsure how to go about the task of harming a creature made from pure stone. As we circle, Kragma begins to reach for the cart, attempting to snatch us off the rail and dash us against the rocks. In the middle of its palm is a glowing spot of magma like those around its body. We take aim and shoot with the bow, somehow puncturing the pocket of magma and causing the monster to roar in pain. That finally unlocks the piece we need, and we start shooting away at the glowing areas on its body. Eventually, the minecart comes up to the top of its tracks, where we are level with Kragma's head and its singular eye. We shoot it with an arrow, and the monster is stunned, falling on its face to the stone platform at the bottom of the chamber. The minecart circles swiftly back to the bottom, dumping us out on the platform where we have direct access to Kragma's exposed head. With a few slashes of the sword, we deal some damage to our foe before it recovers and resumes its efforts to crush us to death. We continue to run around the platform, avoiding his blows and shooting any pockets of magma we can see. When we puncture the one on his lower abdomen, he throws down a double-fisted haymaker, shaking loose a giant boulder from the ceiling. We blow it up with a bomb and use the remains to recreate the path to the minecart, starting our upward journey and the shooting gallery once more. Around and around and around we go, emptying our quiver again and again as we destroy the magma pockets and stun Kragma's eye. Every time he falls to the shore, stunned, we slash away at his head with our sword, and eventually we bash and slash and shoot the stone giant enough times to reduce it to rubble. As it reels in its death throes, it reaches towards the distant ceiling before exploding into a shower of stones. In its place is the bright red force gem of fire. From the lake of lava that was Kragma's temporary home, the force gem's pedestal rises, and the force gem of fire rests upon it once more. As it does, the flash of power floods the room, and we know that the link to the Tower of Spirits has been restored, strengthening the bonds on Malladus once again. With the last of the spirit tracks revived and the Tower of Spirits now fully restored, we know the path to the top of the tower is now open. At the top, we will find Cole and stop whatever ritual he is conducting to release Malladus to inhabit Zelda's body. We hope that Angine is still able to be saved, or that she succeeded in defeating her old apprentice, making our path to the top free and clear. We have to hurry back to the tower and climb to its top as quickly as possible if we have any hope of stopping the return of the Demon King.
Well done, as always, Matt. That brings us to part 2, which is our takes, where we talk about this section of the game and how it made us feel. Connor, you were the guest of the evening, so I'm going to kick this conversation over to you first. And granted, I know that it's been a little while since you played this game, Spirit Tracks, right? But one of the things that we've been talking a lot about this season, spending a lot of time on, is the Tower of Spirits, especially as it compares to everyone's favorite part of The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, which is the Temple of the Ocean King. Exactly. And yeah, just kind of catching up with how we feel about it as a mechanic in this game and how this specific week's arrangement of floors and stuff struck us. So let's start there. How do you feel about the Tower of Spirits?
The Tower of Spirits as a whole is one of the more challenging dungeons from a sheer puzzle solving perspective, which is really fun to do. working with two separate characters has always been a little clunky, no matter how you're pulling it off. Thankfully, Zelda is literally invincible, which makes it a little bit easier to handle. If we want to compare and contrast with the Temple of the Ocean King, the obvious conclusion, I'm sure, is the one you've all made the comparison. This is better as a whole.
Yeah. Yes.
The one thing that I do appreciate about the Temple of the Ocean King is that those repeated dives into it help feel the sense of progression that comes from going through it over and over again. It used to take us 5 minutes to get through here. Now it takes us less than a minute. I feel awesome. But with this one, you get to focus on one specific mechanic and one particular aspect of Zelda's mechanic with each floor, which then, that you'll get to later on, lets you combine them all together into one big mammoth puzzle, which is a really fun and interesting experience with all of them. With this one in particular, teleporting is always entertaining. It's interesting to deal with it when you're limited in where you can teleport. And so trying to handle where Zelda needs to go, directing the eyes to where they need to be so that Zelda can get there, while also putting yourself at risk, because if the alarm is still going off, you have other things that are going to teleport at the same time.
Yeah, I completely agree with all that. And it's so interesting because last week when we were talking with Josh, he gave us the impression that, and of course, last week's Tower of Spirits was the darkness one, right? Where we got to illuminate the torches and do that whole thing, which Matt and I did not like really at all.
Yeah, it was moderately okay at best and bad at worst.
After having a pretty positive experience with the first 2 weeks of the Tower of Spirits, last week was kind of a low point for us. But Josh was kind of talking about it like going forward, it was going to be continuing kind of a downward trajectory in terms of quality. I actually found the arrangements of floors this week to maybe be the most fun so far. The teleport mechanic, I think, was a clever one, and to me, this is a fun advancement of things that were happening in the Temple of the Ocean King, right? Like these little eyeballs that sounded alarms and whatnot. That was a feature of the Temple of the Ocean King as well, right? And we didn't play that game all that long ago, so I still had a lot of the memory of like how these things all function going into this, right? But the added complexity of like, oh, well, okay, well, the eyeballs bring phantoms to them, and Zelda's now a phantom, so it just makes sense that we can harness that ability and use it as a mechanic to sort of puzzle solve in here. I thought that was actually really clever. And I think that this week's Tower of Spirits offering was a bit more of a brain teaser in some ways than past weeks have been. Like I really found myself having to think through these puzzles a little bit more intentionally. Some of them I do feel like were not maybe telegraphed is the wrong word. I'm hesitant to use our O word here, Matt.
Obtuse.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to bring
obtuse.
Obtuse, yeah. That's one of our favorite recurring words on this show.
We actually have been pretty good about not overusing it recently.
Yeah, we only bring it out for special occasions now, but
we used to have an obtuse jar.
Yeah, we used to. Yeah. But I do think the situation where you have to. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like it's going to pay for that. It's going to pay for that Peruvian train vacation eventually. But I do think that the situation where you have to stun the eyeball and then blow it across the chasm with the whirlwind, that to me kind of goes in the obtuse bucket.
That's how you did that?
Right?
That is not how I did that.
Really?
I did not have to do that.
No, there's a much easier way to do that. So the easiest way to do it The easiest way to do it is let the eyeball track you into the sand. The two phantoms will spawn and immediately go into the sand and die. And then you just walk over onto the safe platform and have Zelda teleport to you while the eyeball's still like running around screeching. As soon as Zelda shows up, she kills it and then you're good.
That's
so much easier.
Man, I really wish that I had done it that way because that actually sounds like a lot of fun. And also, I wouldn't have had to use the whirlwind for anything.
Yeah, always best to not use the whirlwind. Yeah.
It's always entertaining to watch your enemies just fall into an abyss.
Yeah, they walk immediately into the quicksand. Like, do you guys have no sense of self-preservation whatsoever? Okay, fine.
They do not.
To be fair,
So, okay.
Zelda doesn't
Well, there you
either.
go.
So if you direct her into the sand, she will go in the sand.
That's true.
Wow. Okay. So, well, there you go. I feel like this is actually a very good showcase for the flexibility of puzzle solving within this whole situation, because doing that didn't even occur to me at all. So there you go, a point in the Tower of Spirits' favor. But Matt, how did you feel about the main mechanic of the tower this week, the teleport system?
Yeah, I thought utilizing the teleport system as Phantom Zelda was a lot of fun. I thought it was a good iteration, and it was cool. It's always cool to use an enemy's power against them, and you didn't get to do that at all with obviously in Phantom Hourglass. And honestly, the last week that we had where Zelda had the flaming sword, like it's just a regular sword and you're using it like a torch. That wasn't all that much fun. So like having a really cool and almost OP ability to just move Zelda around the map willy-nilly, not exactly willy-nilly, but like two points of interest easily was really cool. And it added a really cool aspect of puzzle solving. I think the most interesting one was the turning the tiles red in the certain pattern with Zelda. I thought that was a really good one, having to utilize the mirrored layout, watching the Phantom on the other side of the map trace the path, and then following that with Phantom Zelda.
Yeah.
Like I thought there was some really clever puzzles in here that never strayed past I can solve this by putting my brain to it, and into the like I have no freaking clue what I'm doing. I don't think any of these puzzles got there. And so it stayed in a good spot of challenging, interesting, but not boring or obtuse. I'm gonna just use the word again. So I really liked this section. This section of tower. I thought it was very good.
And it's interesting, that room you're talking about where you have to walk over the tiles, right, to create the pattern. You know, that one did take me a minute, and it was something new and different. It's not something that we saw in the Temple of the Ocean King. Right. It's brand new to this sort of experience, and I did really appreciate it. I just overall impressive. I think I really did enjoy my time in here this week, and these sections are definitely getting longer as well. Right. They started off pretty brief, and now they're kind of definitely starting to extend as we get further into the game, which is nice. That's the way that it should work, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, so Connor, a minute ago, you talked about the Tower of Spirits and were categorizing it explicitly as being a dungeon. Whereas on our end of things, we've kind of been skirting that line, that label, right? It's like we've never committed to calling it an actual, like strictly speaking, a dungeon experience. Do you think that it's appropriate to put it in that bucket? Like just call it a dungeon?
I generally put it as a dungeon just for a matter of convenience, because what else are you going to classify it as? It is it's an area that you go into with various puzzles and challenges, and you're trying to reach a specific goal, even though you are technically dealing with different floors being their own like separate dungeon each time. And the last one, when you get to it, is a real gauntlet that might have you banging your head against a wall. I still kind of have that kind of situation when I play this game. But it's still, with each one, it's still kind of the same. You're here, you have to face stuff to get to the prize at the end. And so that, with each floor, it's still kind of its own dungeon.
Yeah. I think that especially this week, especially the introduction of like the shape tiles where you kind of like you swap places with Zelda, right?
Yep. I loved those, by the way.
Yeah,
those
they were
really
great.
Cool.
Well, so this is all bringing me back to, this is a comparison I made earlier in the season, right? Which is like, I get big co-op Portal vibes from a lot of stuff that happens in the Tower of Spirits. And I really, really like that about it. I think that there's some really solidly executed mechanics and systems here, to the point where I kind of come back often to wishing that the buddy system with Zelda was something that was being done more in the dungeons as well. And I know that that's a tricky line to walk, right? Because if you're a person who doesn't like that system, and you're just applying it to all the dungeons in the game, well, then this is no longer really a fun game for you. You
For
know?
sure.
But I like it, so I'm over here just kind of like, I could have done a little bit of this in the Fire Temple.
I think this is easily the most successfully implemented buddy system in a Zelda game. Like I think it's the best implementation of that very unique style of gameplay. And I agree, actually, Lyndon. I don't think I'd want it in every dungeon, but every once in a while, if Zelda were able to pop into maybe not Phantom Armor, but just something else to help out in a dungeon would be kind of neat. Because one thing we always talk about hating is escort missions, and this is not an escort mission. It's a very different type of thing. So I think,
if anything, she's escorting you.
Really, honestly, she's our freaking invulnerable bodyguard with really cool powers.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. I think that's really awesome.
So Matt says this is the best executed buddy system in Zelda as far as what we've played so far. Connor, would you agree with that assessment?
I think I would. Just thinking of what few buddy systems we have that isn't a straight up multiplayer experience.
I think that's a good delineation.
You can easily switch between both of the characters. Each of them have useful abilities and traits that they use that aren't awkward to try and implement. And
it's funny because Phantom Hourglass messed around with this, right? Like with Gongaron that one time.
Which was fine-ish.
Yeah.
It was a good start, and now they made it better.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess another more recent analog would kind of be the way things are done with the sages in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
But even that's a little different, right? Because you never are explicitly controlling one of those characters.
Yeah, you're basically just given their ability, and then you get it permanently.
Yeah. So
as far as putting Zelda in the different dungeons, something I noticed about all of the dungeons in Spirit Tracks is that you tend to get the key item very early in every dungeon, which makes the dungeon itself a much more centerpiece on the specific item that you get. We got the whip in this level, and we're going to have a ton of whip-based puzzles that you have to deal with. And so with the Tower of Spirits, it's all... Exactly. There's a whole lot of bow stuff that you're doing, and not just killing the main boss. And so with the Tower of Spirits, it's a lot more, this is the Zelda function that we're doing here. That's what we're focusing on.
Zelda as the key item. Pretty much.
Which is better than she normally gets.
Okay.
She's normally the key MacGuffin. Let's be clear.
I'm going to take exception to your statement, Connor, and say that Zelda should always be the key item, but very often she is failed.
She's a stone statue that you have to go rescue from being stone.
Yeah.
As far as game mechanics go, yes, I will give you that.
Yeah, poor Zelda.
We can have a whole different discussion about what she does in the lore. My first ever features article was why the series is rightly called The Legend of Zelda.
Ooh, that's because of how an article. I'm gonna have to go
because of how she is the centerpiece of everything and the instigation of practically everything in every game, while Link is nothing more than an outsider.
All right,
you need to link us to that. I would gladly read that. That sounds.
I would happily share that.
Please do, and I'll share it in the Discord as well. So yeah, I mean, is there anything else we want to say about this week's Tower of Spirits offering? And I mean, also, like, I don't know. At this point, Matt, are you feeling like this is, we're pretty far into the game now.
Yes.
A pretty big point in Spirit Tracks' favor is the Tower of Spirits.
I would say yes, absolutely. I really liked also how they utilized Tower of Spirits to do our classic Zelda mid-season finale of Angine fighting Burn. How they, and like this happens in some other games where like Zelda goes into the crystal in Skyward Sword,
right.
And like so it's the mid-season like, oh, something dramatic happened. Whoa, cool.
Yeah. It's so like you move 7 years into the future, right? Hyrule Castle is encased in a Pyramid of Twilight, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Mid-season finale stuff. There you go.
Zelda disappears into the ether and is mysteriously seen again at the end of the game
with no explanation whatsoever about how that happened.
But where was she? Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. So yeah, completely agree. Regardless, we make it through the Tower of Spirits. We get the rail map. We unlock the the Fire Realm. So it's time to go explore a new chunk of the map of Hyrule. Of New Hyrule, a new chunk of New Hyrule.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. So, Connor, I'm going to send it over to you. How do you feel about the Fire Realm just as a location now that we have access to it versus, we've already been to the Ocean Realm, Forest Realm, and Snow Realm. This is pretty different.
You kind of expected it because we had cold, we had water, we had forest. It's like we're getting another element at some point. It's interesting that they took the exact same peoples from Phantom Hourglass and put them here. There's nothing new in terms of peoples and races that are here. It's a lot hillier, which can make things a little bit frustrating when you are trying to grab places. Like, oh, it's only this far. Oh, no, that's a big hill. Okay, I got to climb.
Now I got to go real slow up this giant hill.
Real slow up the hill.
The train moves super fast all the time, right? And now it's moving even faster.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Which makes the time limits when you get the ice just all that frustrating. I remember going in, it's like, oh, look, there are these trains over in this area that I don't have to touch. Bet that's not going to last very long.
Yeah. Of course, they have to block off the easy path to the Goron village. Of course they do.
Right.
Nothing's ever easy in New Hyrule.
Mm-hmm, exactly. No, I think to me this was fun because you're absolutely right, Connor. We're used to doing things a certain way in most Zelda games, right? And even though this isn't old Hyrule, this is new Hyrule. Apparently, it still has to abide by the rules of having a big old forest, a big old body of water, and a big old flamey mountain where the Gorons live, right? With a castle in the middle of it all. And so, it's appropriate, I guess. What I'm really appreciating about the Fire Realm this week is the fact that from a scenery standpoint and the way that it just looks artistically, we're getting some nice variation and some differences versus what we've had in especially the Forest and Snow Realms. The Snow Realm specifically, I visually wasn't very interesting to me. But here it's fun because you're absolutely right, Connor. We've got a lot of topographical changes. And we've got a lot of scenery going on as well, right? Like huge mountain ranges and stuff. And it looks as good as it can look within this art style, right? As something made for the Nintendo DS. But it had me thinking that stuff like this is one of the reasons that I think I'm enjoying Spirit Tracks more than I was Phantom Hourglass, right? Because Phantom Hourglass in a lot of ways was very samey in terms of its art direction and in terms of its environment design all the way through, right? It's just one big ocean, and it didn't have a lot of oomph. But something about the familiar feeling trappings of these environments in Spirit Tracks are making this feel a bit more like Zelda to me, if that makes sense.
I think so. When you were talking about the environment and the varied environment, I jumped to the map of the Snow Realm. And it's interesting how in the most northwest corner, you get the most cold, the most snow. But as you go through, there's a transition area where you leave all that snow and it all melts away. And you end up in the next area.
Well, it's so funny because it's like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's world, right? Where you've got these completely 100% nature doesn't work this way, right? But you've got these hard divisions between biomes, where it's you could be standing on one side of a canyon and it's 90 degrees or whatever and grassy and sunny and whatnot. And then on the other side of the canyon at the same elevation, it's 30 degrees and icy.
That's not how weather works.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with your comment about, just feeling a little bit more in place with being back in the segmented biomes, Lyndon. I think it helps. The Great Sea is interesting in its own way, and I think it was executed very well in Wind Waker, in my opinion. And I didn't feel that way in Phantom Hourglass. All the islands just felt too small, too out of the way, too far removed from each other, with not enough going on for them artistically. But I think being back on land is helpful as well. Just having everything interconnected, being able to see how they relate to each other on a map. Like I think it helps in general just because it's more familiar. So I agree for those reasons.
I think the music helps in that regard. One of the major criticisms I have for Phantom Hourglass is its very limited soundtrack. Pretty much all of the islands have the same music. All of the dungeons have the same music, which is the cave music. There's a lot of sameness that is permeating the atmosphere in Phantom Hourglass. Well, Spirit Tracks, you get a return to, this is a different dungeon, different music. This is a different area, different music.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I noticed it immediately going from the snow realm into the fire realm was the change and it's still the same overworld theme, but they undercut it with different region themes, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and one thing that's great about this world as well is the constant presence of the Tower of Spirits at the center of it all that you can kind of see from anywhere. Yeah. And that's even more visible when you're in this region, right? Because you're kind of up high. The elevation is like giving you a really good view of it all the time. So that's something that I really enjoy as well. I
thought it was actually kind of funny. So I was driving near the Tower of Spirits and seeing it spinning around. It's like, everyone's freaking out about how the tracks are vanishing. Is no one freaking out about that?
Yeah, seriously, that's far more terrifying. Is the tower has been broken into pieces and is just floating in midair. Yeah, I would think I would be more concerned about that
underneath like a dark energy cyclone, right? It's like, yeah, exactly.
Does someone see this?
But the train tracks, no, the train tracks are gone. Everyone freak out. So and I do think it's funny, right? It's like such a classic Zelda trope, right? Like we're in the Goron region right now, so of course we have to have flaming boulders that are like falling out of the sky.
Of course, yeah. Of course we do. Yeah,
you gotta have something to keep you on your toes.
You do. But it's nice because in this game we have a train-mounted bomb system, so it's cool.
Yes.
Oh, dude, I still love the cannon. Honestly, the cannon is just the best part of the train.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
I agree.
Although the whistle's a close second.
Yeah. So here's a question that I have. Do y'all think that we will ever get a musical theme for Goron City that is not the bongo, boom, boom, that one,
boom. Yeah.
Probably not, because we've set it in stone now set it in stone.
Hey.
It has become its theme. It will forever remain its theme.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yep, completely agree. It's fine. I like it. I really do like it. I knocked it in Phantom Hourglass because it was just another like reuse of an old Zelda theme that game was doing. But Spirit Tracks has got plenty of its own music, so if they want to use the classic Goron City theme for this area, then more power to them. So yeah, I mean, we're firmly in the section of the game right now, which is just like do a lot of stuff between the Tower of Spirits and actually getting to the dungeon. Connor, how do you feel? I mean, we've been talking a lot this season about Spirit Tracks' cadence of content, right? Like leave the Tower of Spirits, then go try to find the sanctuary, meet up with the Locomo, do a duet, have to do another quest of some kind that involves train traversal, and then eventually you get to the dungeon. All of this kind of content between things, is this something that you kind of enjoy? Does it do it for you, or is it stuff that you just kind of find yourself trying to get past for the most part?
In terms of the actual cadence of the game, I can appreciate how it's an interruption. In a lot of ways, it can be seen as an interruption. There was a point in this particular segment where you're like, oh, we have to go get ice. That makes sense. So you go get ice, and you have to get the Anuki to the place where you can actually make the ice. And then he's like, oh, no, you can't stay here. It's a trade secret. So I was like, okay, well, I got to go do something else for a little bit. So I ended up wandering into the northwest corner of the Snow Realm, where I had unlocked, thanks to some other stuff I had done, a kind of a hidden dungeon kind of deal, and just did that. And as soon as I was done with that, I came back and the ice was ready. I have no idea if I just needed to like leave and come back immediately and it'd be there, but it's like something to do, I guess. In terms of the story, it's a breakup and gets kind of frustrating. On the other hand, this is Zelda, which involves world exploration as one of its key features, and they've always tried to encourage that in some form or another. I think with as more rigid of a storyline as this game gets, other more story focused games like Twilight Princess, especially Skyward Sword, it feels a little weirder to break that story to go off and do something else.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. You don't actually, and was my experience anyway. I didn't actually even leave the island. I just got out of eyeshot, went and roamed around the island, found the stamp station, did a couple things, and came back, and it was ready. But
Nice.
something we talked about more last week was just like the sheer amount of busy work stuff that happens in these sections, which and it was, in my opinion, way more prominent last week than it was this week. It's just the go here. Well, you can't progress further. Now go all the way back to another place, get a dude, come all the way back, then go do a third thing, then come back. Then the thing is ready. Well, now you can go to the sanctuary, but psych, the sanctuary isn't where you need to be. Now you have to backtrack again to another place, find a thing, then go back to the sanctuary, then duet, then go to it's like, so it just all turns into sequential steps of busy work that I don't think meshes well with, like you said, Connor, I think you said it really well. Like in a story-driven game, side quests are good, but side quests that feel like busy work are not good. And side quests that don't add to the overall story, character development, or world building are not good. And so many of the side questy things that happen in these sections of games, which really you can't even call them side quests because it's part of progressing the main quest, but they feel like side quests, are just fetch quests. It's just go here, get something, bring it back. Go here, do something, then come back. It's so soulless that it doesn't add much to the story and to the characters.
So I'm gonna adopt a slightly kinder term.
Well, that's your role. My role is the pessimist. Your role is the optimist.
Fair enough. So for me, it's not necessarily soulless. Where I'm at with it right now is that the structure, even though the activities that we're doing and the people that we're doing them with are different between each dungeon, right? The structure and the cadence of them is very predictable at this point, right? And which I think is the thing that is grating against me a little bit right now, and especially when we're talking about like what are these sections of game meant to do? I mean, Connor, you were talking about overworld exploration and the purpose that it serves in the Zelda games just a minute ago. And the thing is, we have to remember that Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks don't really have overworld exploration in the way that we would typically talk about it. Within the context of the Zelda series, right? Especially the top-down games, you know? Spirit Tracks especially is much more, it's a much more controlled environment, you know? And so I think the intention was to give you a lot of activities here in order to fill the space that would otherwise be taken up by exploring an overworld in a Zelda game, right? And you know, if what you've decided for your game is that you are not going to have a free roam overworld, then cool. Like for the purposes of this discussion, let's just accept that and as neither a positive nor a negative thing, you know. But if you're going to do that, then I think the activities that you put in the game that take its place need to have a similar feeling of openness to them. If not in terms of like geography or like area that you're exploring, I think they just need to feel a bit more natural, right? And the strict structure of them right now is not feeling that way to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment entirely. Connor, do you agree or disagree about Spirit Tracks overall in that particular sense?
I find, and I've surprised people when I've said this, I find the overworld of Spirit Tracks to be the most active overworld in the series because of the things that you have to do every single time you're going to a destination. You have to keep an eye out for things that are going to be in your path. You need to keep an eye out for the trains. You need to make sure you're going in the right direction. There are bunnies to collect. There's hearts and things that you can grab at any given time. And when you are transporting someone or something, you have to make sure that you are doing what is necessary to make sure that you don't lose those things that you're carrying. In terms of what you can do in that regards, though, I agree. You can really only do 3 things. You can travel from point A to point B, you can carry a person, or you can carry supplies. And so in terms of variety that you can do while traveling, there is very little. Hampered, of course, also by the fact that you are literally on rails. And so your exploration then comes not in that journey, but in fact the destination. And so what can you find at the end of your goals, which then emphasizes the importance of collecting all of the force gems and finding all of the different little bonus places that you can explore and enjoy a different challenge.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that too just does come down to the base question of like, how much do you like traversing this world via the train and being, again, to use the pun again, being as on rails as we are here, right? And that answer is going to change for a lot of people, right? One thing that I will say, Matt, is that, we've been talking about this overworld system as a fairly limiting one, but I don't necessarily know that you could say objectively that this is intrinsically less fun than a completely open but very empty overworld experience.
A la Twilight Princess.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like we've had examples in some Zelda games of overworlds that, while free roam in name, right, weren't like it didn't like there was a promise there that didn't actually result in a lot of minute-to-minute fun because the amount of things to do in those spaces really were just boiled down to like trash mob encounters and walking, with a little bit of exploration to be done for like heart pieces and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a clear like this is the right way to do it or this is the wrong way to do it. And I agree with you, Connor. I think that Spirit Tracks, I don't know if I would go so far as to say that I think it has the most active incarnation of an overworld in the Zelda game, but like I do think that there is an argument to be made for why this is a solid idea in and of itself. Me personally, just because of the time that it takes to do a lot of things while you're traversing an area on the train, frustrates me and causes me to get bored sometimes, right? I don't find myself super incentivized to just spend a lot of time driving around looking for new locations and opening up new tracks and all that other stuff. But I can definitely see the appeal if that's something that you enjoy. So kind of moving back to the narrative stuff, right? Like we've kind of talked about like, yes, this is the same sort of arrangement of activities that we've had between dungeons so far. Let's talk about some of the activities that we actually get up to this week. Last week we had the pirate showdown, right? Where the pirates are boarding our train as we're trying to get Carbon back to the sanctuary. This week's equivalent of that is that we've got to bring the ice from the Wellspring Station, I think is what it's called, back to Goron Village to thaw out the lava plume and whatnot. And so we get another kind of train mini game where we've got to manage the health of the ice. Connor, was this doing anything for you? Do you enjoy the ice escort mission any more or less than, say, like the bridge builder escort situation?
The bridge builder escort situation I find more fun. It's kind of funny to have someone yelling at you when you're driving your train. Though there has been one point or another when I would have like 4 different things I'm trying to do, and then I forget to blow the whistle or something. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, dude, I'm trying to keep you alive here. I'm busy.
Yeah, I'm busy fighting off some Moblin raiders on war pigs. Like, can you give me a break?
Right, exactly. It's like there's some things going on here right now, Bridge Builder. Like, cut me some slack.
It is interesting to be on a timer, which is essentially what these do. Some of the other things that you have to carry don't necessarily have a timer, but ice does. And it's depending on how frantic the situation is, being on that timer can give you a little bit more of an intensity. In this particular segment, I didn't have any trouble at all. And so it was just more of okay, this is what I'm doing. I would need to have, and there are opportunities if you look for them, for much tighter time windows that require some very careful planning, which is a challenge in and of itself. But that's not something that's required for the game or the story.
Yeah. I will say that I was having a hard time completely understanding the relationship between things that were happening as I was driving and like how fast or slow that would result in the ice melting or depreciating or whatever. Because I know like when the Goron gives you the ice, he's talking a lot about like,
the Anuki.
What?
The Anuki.
Oh, the Anuki. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, when the Anuki gives you the ice, he's talking a lot about like, if you take turns too sharp, then the ice will sway and it'll slide around and all this other stuff. And of course, you just sort of know like if I get hit by an enemy, I'm going to lose some of it, right? Like that kind of speaks for itself, Mm-hmm. But then once you get out of the snow realm, you are faced with, like you're saying, a timer where it's like if it takes you too long to get to Goron City, then you're going to have to start this whole mini game over. But I was having a hard time understanding like, well, what's the pace of things here? Like I'm having a hard time understanding how quickly, like how much ice I'm losing per minute or whatever. And what exactly is going to cause me to lose ice versus not, to the point where honestly, I think it might've been just a little bit more helpful if there had just been a timer, like we're saying, there's an implied timer, like that's essentially what it is. But what it's represented as in game is just like a little ice icon and then a times 20 next to it,
Yeah. Did you fail this?
No.
Okay. I didn't either. I think I agree with what you're saying, Lyndon. It was kind of not very clear. But since it wasn't overly difficult, I wasn't overly worried about it, and I was just kind of like took it at face value for what it is. I don't know where I land on if this is more or less fun than Bridge Builder. I think just in general, it didn't feel very different to me than just kind of moving around the map because I wasn't honestly really worried about it. Like by the time that I was more than halfway to Goron Village, I still had like 17 of my ice blocks left.
That's where I was.
I was like, okay, I'm not worrying about this anymore. I'm just going to avoid the trains and get there.
Yeah.
So I think it was less of a actually actively managing what I'm doing. With the Bridge Builder, I was actively managing. Like you have to, slow down, speed up, blow your whistle, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's points in the Bridge Builder's favor, honestly. So I think I'd have to say that's at least a more engaging version of this type of mechanic.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Honestly, the most trouble I had was getting out of the snow realm because there was this one train that kept going right to where I wanted to be in order to leave.
Dude, that's so frustrating.
Yeah.
I was getting sandwiched in between the trains in the fire realm. They kept going around the same tracks in opposite directions. And so there was multiple times where I had to like reverse back onto a different track, let them pass and then go forward. And then I'd get halfway down that track and the train would then divert onto the track that I was on. And so I'd have to do it again. And I was like, okay, come on. This is super annoying.
I spent the back half of this whole thing with one of the bomb trains chasing me. And it was fine because so here's what I figured out about these. This is the system. You can't destroy them, but if you hit them 4 times with a bomb, then they enter like a slowed period.
Right. Yes.
And it takes them a bit to recover. Right. So basically all you really have to do is just stay out in front of it, keep your camera pointed backwards, just lay on the bombs.
Yeah, just pound it. Yeah.
As long as you're not being faced with an armored one.
The armored ones, they suck.
Wait, have we met that yet?
Yeah, the thing out of the water temple.
Oh, right. You're right.
Yeah. You can't destroy those.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also the thing about the armored ones, if you didn't notice, is they will also actively seek you out.
Yes, I know.
And they are faster.
Yes.
Matt had some issues with the armored bomb trains
last week. Not my favorite. Yeah, not my favorite.
So we get the ice back to Goron City, and we managed to like freeze the lava plume. We're able to kind of do some exploration on this little island going back into the fire sanctuary, right? Honestly, just from a combat intensity perspective, I don't know what these plants are that are littering this path, but this kind of devolved into like a little bit of a bullet hell situation.
Yes.
There was a lot of them, man. There was so many.
Yeah.
Can we question for a second what the heck this elder is doing, having an open door to this backyard that just has all of this horrible stuff just open? No one's been back there for a while. It's like, and you leave the door open?
Yeah. Piranha plants, fire keys, and raining down meteors. You're just like, okay, man, I don't think anyone should be back here ever. Maybe you should close this door up a little bit. Maybe seal it. I don't know, something.
Hyrule Castle had the same problem. Why does everyone's backyard suck?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, it's really not great for them.
It's so funny because you go and talk to the elder and he's just like, man, you're like a kid and you got all the way back here? And you can just kind of like see the gears turning where he's just like, man, yeah, that probably was not a good place for you to be, child.
I had the same issue with their priest. It was like, wait, what are you doing here? What? No one, you shouldn't be coming here on a whim. I'm like, dude, have you seen out front? There's no whim that would take me through that Indiana Jones boulder cascade.
Dude, it was boulder hell. I thought getting to the priest was the hardest part of this whole section, to be honest. I almost died so many times.
Was. You know, so much of what that is, too, is just I am serviceable with these controls, right? Like, I can make it work, but I wouldn't call myself precise with the touch controls.
Yes.
And the timing of several things in this episode, honestly, kind of requires you to be a little bit.
Yeah.
There was the boulders, and then there was like one or two areas in the dungeon as well. And that was causing a little bit of an issue for me, right? And some of it too was just not having a great understanding of what the hitboxes of things were, right?
Yes.
Like, how close can I be to the boulder without actually taking damage from the boulder? Was a game I was playing.
That was some math you had to work out for sure.
Uh-huh.
Several
I agree.
of the bonus areas require some very tight time windows, and yeah, it's a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. But we get to the fire sanctuary finally. We have another puzzle that kind of takes us into this whole thing. The whole one with the statues, right? Where you have to read the little like poem on the
Once
on
upon
the
a
block.
time.
Exactly.
The two dudes who liked the same girl, but then were friends after they hated each other for a short period of time. Huh, okay.
And I'm reading
Sure.
this, I'm just like, there's no way this is a hint for anything. And it's in fairness, it's like, it's kind of fun, right? When you read something like that, and if you played enough Zelda, now you're immediately kind of taking in your environment, right? It's like, what are the pieces here? You know, what am I supposed to be kind of trying to figure out? And I was a little proud of myself. Like, I got it pretty immediately, you know, as reading the story. I was like, there was the one guy who was the center of attention all the time. And then there was the other guy who liked the girl that liked the first guy or whatever. And it's like, okay, so there's a bunch of statues and most of them are all looking at this one dude. So that's one of the people we're talking about. And then this other statue is the only one who's not looking at him. And so got there, right? Yep. Where it all fell apart for me was in remembering that there's a song that you are supposed to play that does things.
That's the challenge I had.
Yeah. No, it was definitely not clear, especially which song you're supposed to play, because you could play the Song of Discovery, you could play the Song of Awakening, you could play the Song of Light, you could play almost any of them except maybe the Song of Healing or the Song of Birds. But like, yeah, you kind of go through your repertoire and you're just like, okay, which one is going to work? And you just figure it out. Yeah.
Dude, obviously a seagull was going to come in and pick you up.
That would have been interesting for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like the Song of Birds should really be using. It should be being used for more things than it currently is. I feel like the Song of Birds is really underused in this game right now.
Don't speak that into existence, because I don't want to play this flute any more than I absolutely have to.
Oh, it's just more time with the flute, Matt. It's great.
I don't want to play the flute, Lyndon.
This is the main fun mechanic on which the whole game turns.
And
flute.
I hate it.
Yeah, okay.
I hate it.
Okay, cool. I hear your thoughts, Matt, and I validate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They are shared frustrations by many individuals. Not me, but many.
So just out of curiosity, Connor, Josh has talked a lot about how he's played both versions of these games, like DS and then on the Wii U as well. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to screw around with the Wii U microphone?
Yeah, he said that's the one that he did for his YouTube channel.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Way to pay
Yeah,
attention.
I did. So
Linda.
I'm sorry.
I have played both versions, and I haven't had too many frustrations with the Wii U version. The microphone, like I said, I think the biggest challenge I had, honestly, is just locating the microphone.
Right.
As soon as I knew where it was, I was like, okay, here it is. I got to remember it's right here. Blow directly into it. We're good. It does. Yeah. It is a little harder to play the flute on the Wii U than it is on the DS. I have noticed.
Is that just because of where it's located in relation to like where your hands are holding the controller and like you have to get your face up close to it?
It's part of the reason. I think that the DS touchscreen is a little bit more sensitive. It's a lot easier to move the flute on the DS version than it is on the Wii U.
Yeah.
And also
like Wii,
because
you
of
kind
this,
of have to like.
It's the size. The size of the DS is much more conducive to blowing, seeing what's going on, and moving the thing around. While with the Wii U, it's a lot more bulky, which is harder to manipulate.
Yeah. Well, and you're definitely right. The feeling of the touchscreen on the Wii U is like, I guess I would describe it as a little bit more mushy feeling than the DS touchscreen, right? That's probably just because of the extra space that it takes up. It's just bigger, you know?
It's not designed for the kind of fine-tuned movements that the DS was developed for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. So we catch up with this week's Locomo, who's a gentleman by the name of Ambrose, I believe.
Yes.
The name of this guy. And
I love his hair.
Ambrose has got a great do going on.
I like Ambrose the most out of the Locomos, besides maybe Angie. And this dude's got some. He's got some soul. He feels like a guy who would enjoy good jazz or a blues club.
Yeah. Yep.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, Connor, where are you with the Locomo as just a species? We've enjoyed some jokes at their expense so far this season about how they're literally just people on top and train on bottom.
So I actually had this discussion on stream a few weeks ago because someone thought that they were quite literally trained centaurs. I was like, no, they just ride them. And they freaked out. I was like, wait, what?
Them? Are they actually people and they're just riding in trains like wheelchairs?
They are humanoid people just riding around in their little train wheelchairs. Yeah.
So they have feet.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yes. This. I suppose this is kind of spoilerish territory, but it's something that you do see. You see their actual origins by the end of the game. Now we kind of skipped over the story segment in the Tower of Spirits, but you see when Angine and Bjorn are confronting each other, how they're servants. They were both servants. Bjorn is an apprentice to Angine, and he has legs.
That's true.
Well, that's fair. Bjorn definitely has legs.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've blown this whole Locomo situation wide open for us, Connor.
There you go.
I don't know. I wish I could go back to a point in time where I thought that they were literally just trained centaurs because that was
that was
funny. Yeah.
The person I was talking to is actually like terrified of the Locomos because she thought that they were these freaky trained centaurs.
It's like where does the train begin and the person end? You know, it was confusing. It was a big old question. Yeah. I actually like this duet. Like this is one thing that we've been saying a lot, Connor, this season is that it's sort of sad to us that the music that that you collect and use for things throughout the game is not the music that you're playing as duets with the Locomos because the duets are actually very interesting pieces of music that you never use again.
Oh, they're so good. I'm trying to be very careful with spoilers and whatnot. You do get a chance to revisit that music, though not directly.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll definitely look forward to that. I mean, regardless, this to me, I mean, Matt, did you find that this duet was easier to pull off just technically than last week's?
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of.
I did.
I don't know.
I had a ton of problems with last week's. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't love last week's. I didn't find this one like particularly easy, but yeah, like it was fine. It wasn't. I don't think it was as hard as last week's. Yeah, I guess I'll say yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. But anyway, we get the spirit tracks restored. We now have got a path towards the fire temple, and so that sort of brings us to the end of this interstitial section for the week. Do we have any points that we glossed over, or anything specific that anyone wants to mention before we go and start talking about the dungeon?
You don't want to talk about yelling at the elephants?
Oh yeah, you have to yell. You have to whistle at the elephants.
Well, and I just want to say that whenever that whole section started, and they, I was getting some instruction from the villagers on what to do with these guys, I was worried that what they were actually telling me to do was shout. Right?
I thought the same.
Yeah. Oh no, I knew that it was the whistle.
Okay.
I was like, no, I'm not shouting.
Yeah. Well, and I got that eventually, right? But it's like in Phantom Hourglass, we were having to shout at the DS.
I remember.
And I was worried that was going to make an unfortunate comeback here, but I do much prefer using the train whistle. But this whole little section, I don't know. I actually thought it was kind of fun, right? I definitely enjoyed this way more than the whole having to get into the Ocean Temple.
Yeah.
While avoiding the armored trains thing. What do you think, Connor?
I agree. This is a lot more active. Any time that you're actively doing something is a lot better than just sitting around waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, I agree. This was way better than Armored Train. I did so the cadence of short blast to long blast took me a little while to get the hang of. Like I don't know if I was doing the first whistle too long or if I wasn't letting enough time in between them or what, but I literally had them escape from me like 5 or 6 times before I got it down, and then I just got all 3 right in a row after that. So I think I might have just had a hard time dialing it in correctly, but once I got it in, it wasn't too bad.
You didn't have any steal them back from you?
No, I did not have any get stolen from me, which is very nice. I didn't know that was possible. Thank God.
Yeah,
I probably would have been more annoyed.
They start chasing you down.
Yeah, I kept shooting them out of the air after they did that because I didn't want to. I thought they were going to hit me, and I was like, I'm not dealing with this. So I guess I just got lucky.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I didn't realize that as well. I didn't have a piece stolen from me. I thought that the only thing that was really on the line here was that you would get destroyed, and just have to restart the whole thing, which also didn't sound like fun.
No,
but
being destroyed is never fun. There's a couple of times I've had my train explode, and it sucks.
Yeah. Well, not least of which because now you're just worried that Link is like burning alive inside the train, right? And it's horrifying.
Yes.
Yes. So, but anyway, I actually kind of like this whole thing. I really do. I appreciate that they give you plenty of track and like plenty of different nooks and crannies in this little square maze around the temple. Like there's a lot of maneuverability that you can kind of get up to here. And I feel like that's really essential. If you're going to do this kind of minigame, that is essential, especially given how much of a pain in the butt it is to go in a different direction than the one you're currently going in, right? Mm-hmm. Because reverse sucks.
Yeah, reverse is the worst.
Yeah.
Never reverse.
Yeah.
If you can help it.
Yeah. But these things look so funny too. Yeah, exactly right. These things look hilarious too. Do we know what they're called? I mean, do these creatures have a name?
I just call them elephants.
I think they're snurgluffs.
Snuffleupagus?
Snurgluffs, yeah.
No, they're called snurgles.
Snurgles?
Snurgle.
I was close.
Justification
Snurgle or
for Matt.
Snurglar.
I like Snurgle better.
Snurgle
it's kind
is
of
better.
A cute sounding little name.
The Zelda Wiki has them as Snurgle, so...
Okay, well, we trust the Zelda Wiki, so cool. That's what we'll move forward with. But yeah, Snurgle Encounter was a pretty good time. It was definitely a fun way to spend 10 minutes for me. I think I did enjoy it well enough. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that leaving this whole interstitial section going into the dungeon, I'm excited to see if there are any differences or any shakeups in the way that this happens next week, because we have another dungeon before we go and we beat the game, and we've unlocked all of the realms so far. So if there was a time for things to get a little different, then I think now would be it. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be interested to see where that goes. But let's go ahead and get into part 3, which is the dungeon map, where we talk about this week's dungeon from mechanics to music and more. This week's dungeon is the Fire Temple. quick rundown on this whole dungeon experience. It is a vertically oriented dungeon, but it is not a vertically oriented puzzle dungeon, if that makes sense. Like, it's a dungeon that has several floors, but there's not a whole lot of puzzle solving that's taking place between the floors, outside of a little bit of note taking that you have to do. It is a mostly symmetrical layout. The dungeon's floors tend to have centrally aligned spaces, with big major areas in the center of a floor, and then satellite stuff kind of happening out past that. A big feature within this dungeon is the rail carts. So a return of a thing that happened in the last game we played, Matt, which was Minish Cap, right? Where the Fire Temple had minecart situations going on there as well. A little bit more involved here. The minecarts in the Fire Temple have switchers, right? Where you have to move yourself between different paths, and sometimes with health and falling into lava being on the line if you don't do that quickly enough. Enemies that are in this dungeon include, let's see, we've got fire keys, we've got blade traps, we've got Stalfos, and then we've got a mini boss type enemy called the Hetoys.
It's a turtle.
Yeah. So the way it's spelled is like tortoise, right? Mm-hmm. And I know some people pronounce that tortoise or whatever. I pronounce it tortoise, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this within that system. Like Hetus, I don't know. It's
let's just go with turtle.
It looks like a totally legitimate word. I see what they're doing, but it's weird to say.
Yeah, it looks like a turtle. I just call it a turtle.
Yeah. Big old fire turtles, right?
Yeah.
So that's a recurring enemy in this dungeon. And then the boss is Kragma, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. The main item in this dungeon is the bow. One of them.
Yeah, we love the bow.
We love the bow.
Took us a while.
Yeah, it really did. This one was late in the game. But that's probably for the best, right? Because it's like, I always find it's best if you get the bow after the boomerang, at least. Like, that gives the boomerang some time to be special. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the Fire Temple. Connor, I'm going to open it up to you first. Why don't you give us some of your thoughts about this dungeon?
Minecarts are always fun. I find that it's what makes this temple the most memorable, and I love any time that you get to go running around on minecarts. I don't know why, but I do. And just like with outside, if you're not paying attention, you're going to mess up in some way, particularly in that last one where it is rapid fire. Hit this one, don't hit this one, hit this one, hit that one, don't hit that one. You're saving yourself, you're saving the key. And it is a good time.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so funny because in my mind, we played Minish Cap last season, and I remembered that there were minecarts in the Temple of Flames, or whatever the name was there. And in my mind, they were much more intricate, like much more of a system that had to be managed than they actually were. And I was disappointed when we got to that dungeon and that wasn't the case. And so that kind of, that led to me actually having a pretty good time with that whole mechanic in this dungeon, right? Because it is, a thing that recurs throughout the entire thing, right? Like, there are several big mechanics that revolve around these mine carts, from the mid dungeon all the way up to the very end when you're trying to get to the boss, and you do have to, they are a mechanic that has to be managed, right? The switching of tracks and the managing of things. Like, I love that. That to me was a really good time.
Yeah, I thought this was much better than the Cave of Flames minecarts as well. The switching was a good addition, and I think overall, I actually do think that this dungeon worked well. I think it had interesting puzzles. I think it utilized the drawing mechanic sparsely and well.
Yeah.
The fact where it was like, hey, take note of where the pitfalls are. They're the same on the other side. Like, that was good. And then in the final room leading up to the boss, you've got the thing that shows you which switches to hit. So you mark those down. I think it was. I think this is the strongest dungeon in the game so far, honestly. I enjoyed it the most.
Mhm.
I think part of that is the bow. I think the bow is a really great item, especially on the touchscreen. The accuracy with which you can shoot it is good, and I love those little items that the little things that redirect arrows in other directions. Like those are so cool. I want those in more Zelda games. Those are so fun.
Yeah. So the
very
point to
fun.
shoot aspect, they're really great. The point to shoot aspect of the bow is always going to be fun on the touchscreen. And Connor, I don't know where you're at with this specifically, but in Phantom Hourglass, and then to a lesser extent, Spirit Tracks, Matt and I have always kind of felt like one of the big things that touchscreen controls have going in their favor is that they allow for some really interesting takes on classic Zelda items. Oftentimes resulting in the best versions of those items in the entire series, right? Like
The
boomerang
is
and bomb chews.
The boomerang has never been done better in this game. Bomb chews I found to be a little bit more finicky because it generally requires a lot more exact placement, which made it a little bit more frustrating. The bow is, you never have to worry about missing anything, which is just super nice. I love the whip. The whip is so fun in this game. The fact that you go full Indiana Jones on this, you get to jump over a door in this dungeon, and that's so fun.
You do. Yeah. We do appreciate that. We were a little down on the whip last week because we were comparing it to the grapple hook from Phantom Hourglass, which did like a lot more things. But yeah, in and of itself, it is a pretty good time. But yeah, I mean, the bow is always a great one to get, and it really is just kind of a sniper rifle in this game. I do have to admit that it's tough for me because in my mind, like I had this problem with Phantom Hourglass too. In A Link Between Worlds, I got so used to the bow basically having infinite ammo, and having to having to manage that a little bit more in this dungeon became an issue for me at times. I actually found myself kind of frequently running out of arrows.
I was having issues on the boss with keeping up with my ammo.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that more in a second because it was definitely kind of I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about the boss and the ammo economy during that fight is definitely one of them. But I don't know, Connor, like Matt was mentioning the notations on the map and the way that you solve some of those puzzles in here, where it's done kind of a little sparingly in this dungeon, but it's done in very clever ways. How do you feel about the map drawing system, like the taking of notes and all of that? Is it something that you enjoy quite a lot in Spirit Tracks?
The very unique thing about both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks is that dungeon puzzles tend to take up the entirety of a floor more so than individual rooms that you'll get with most other games. And that's a lot to keep track of, which makes being able to take notes very useful and very beneficial in any kind of situation. I love being able to annotate because it's something that I should have done a lot more in other games and never do, and I tend to regret it. But if it's right there, it's like, oh, make a note, done, and I can always look at it.
Especially the times where the game is basically telling you, write this down on your map,
In some ways, it's it's like, did you really have to tell to me that blatantly? Like, there's one stone in here. It's like, remember, your goal beyond this point is to get a key. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
Duh. That's
oh my gosh, we were cracking up at that.
There's a locked door.
We
right
were
here.
cracking up at that stone particularly. That was insane. That definitely got a feature piece in the Discord today.
Well, it's so hilarious because it was so obvious and such a dumb hint that it had me sitting there wondering, like, is this actually trying to tell me something more clever than what it seems like it is? Like,
nope. It's just reminding you about small keys.
And then, but then consider you go beyond that door and you go through one heck of a puzzle situation throughout the entire floor. And when you finally reach the end, you're like, oh, that's right. This is what I came here for after this whole thing. This one key.
It was definitely one of those moments where you look at a Zelda game and you go, really? And I had a lot of those with Fee in Skyward Sword where I'd be like, stop telling me obvious things. And this was one of those, like, please don't do that. Don't insult my intelligence.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that they put those in there because they're going through play testing, and whoever they're using for some reason is just having the worst time. It's like, well, we got to spell it out because they're not getting it.
It's like somebody sent a note up to the producer, right, and was like, "Hey, so we have 3 different people who were missing this. Can we get a hint in the game somewhere that helps to like alleviate this problem?" It's like working in game dev. I think you're exactly right. I've seen versions of that situation play out in my day job. So
as a dungeon master, I deal with it all the time. It's like, dude, guys, seriously, let me spell this out for you so we have no misunderstandings.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally, completely correct. It's such a good observation, too. The fact that dungeons and Spirit Tracks tend to operate on a floor basis instead of a room basis. That actually kind of helps me contextualize the layouts of some of these dungeons a little bit better. One of my big issues with dungeons in Phantom Hourglass was the fact that, to me, they didn't feel like they had as intentional of a layout as dungeons in some other top-down Zelda games, like your Link's Awakenings and A Link Between Worlds and stuff like that, right? It more just felt like, you know, like the puzzles were fun and the dungeons required some thought and they weren't too short or anything, but there was I was missing an intentionality of layout and design that I found in other Zelda games. But you kind of framing it within the context of like you're used to solving puzzles on a room to room basis, and Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass operate on a floor basis. That's a really interesting observation that I had never considered before. How about you, Matt? Does that kind of like shaking anything loose for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a different way than I had ever thought about it. But like just hearing it and then thinking back to the dungeons we've gone through, and like that's absolutely right. It's absolutely accurate. So I don't know that it solves the issues I have with sense of place and identity that I generally have with Phantom Hourglass, more specifically than Spirit Tracks. But it helps reframe it a little bit. For sure.
You know what this dungeon felt like to me, Matt?
What did it feel like?
This felt like an A Link Between Worlds dungeon to me.
Interesting.
I couldn't tell you why. Yeah. Connor, I think you were just on the verge of asking me to like tell you why that is.
I was about to say how so. I mean, we're talking a completely different game. I very much appreciate, if there's one thing that A Link Between Worlds does amazingly, it's its dungeon design. In terms of feeling that way, there's a little bit more of a 3-dimensional aspect to a couple of these floors that I could see in terms of Link Between Worlds.
I think it's a little bit of that, and it is also just that this dungeon has got a lot of different kind of mechanics to juggle, right? One of them is the mine carts for sure, but we were talking about the little arrow nodes. I don't know what those are called, right? But the ones where you change their direction and they shoot an arrow out on a particular axis, and so all of those things together were adding a level of kind of complexity, and some of it I think is just the scenery too. Like this dungeon to me has a very successful atmosphere and aesthetic that I appreciated.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think some of the scenery, specifically some of the floor tiling in the entryway, actually gave me Ocarina of Time Fire Temple vibes for some reason. But I think overall, your comparison to Link Between Worlds,
well, and it has its own music, so
yes, which is great.
Yeah,
much better.
The past 3 dungeons have each shared a dungeon theme, which was good, by the way. Like I don't want to.
The dungeon theme's good.
Yeah, but this one has its own unique piece of dungeon music, which actually, again, would not have felt out of place in the Ocarina of Time Fire Temple.
Agree completely. Yes.
Yeah. So that was really fun as well. But this was such a fun moment for me. Going back to the arrow nodes, right? Figuring out that you could pick them up and move them. Because I knew
that was new. You could not do that in Phantom Hourglass.
You could not. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool discovery. I enjoyed that as a function of puzzle solving, especially in the area where you had to elevate one, then stand on the another side, shoot the diagonal. Like that was a cool puzzle.
That room took me a second.
Yeah, I liked that puzzle.
That's
a lot.
a hard one. It's definitely the hardest thing in the whole level.
Yeah, I would agree. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
To me, some of that too was that I was a little confused because as soon as I saw the way that it was supposed to work, I knew on one of these three, I'm going to need to put a little stone tile that I can stand on, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was just looking for that, not realizing that I could pick the one up that I'd already placed.
Yes, it took me a long time to get that down as well.
Yeah. And it's like once I got that, it was like, okay, cool. And also, I'm glad that I now know this is a thing that I can do.
Yes, that's very helpful.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that honestly was a very classic Zelda puzzle feeling room to me.
I agree.
And I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, so fire temples are an interesting thing. Because to me, I usually enjoy fire temples, but I don't think a fire temple has ever been like one of my favorite dungeons in a Zelda game. They typically end up somewhere in the middle.
Dragon Roost Island, baby.
Things. Oh, that's fair. That was our number one dungeon for Wind Waker.
Number 2. It was we had the Earth Temple as number 1.
Yeah,
Dragon Roost was number 2. It was close. Yeah.
I think I would probably put Dragon Roost in that for Wind Waker as my number 1.
Yeah. It's just and it's such a strong first dungeon too.
It's
right?
probably the best first dungeon in Zelda.
Yeah. But I don't know. So, but I think you're absolutely right, Matt. This dungeon to me was the most fun that I've had doing a dungeon in Spirit Tracks so far. Without talking about the Sand Temple, Connor, because we haven't played that one yet. Do you feel like between forest, snow, ocean, and fire, do you think this is the strongest of those 4?
Definitely.
Yeah.
No notes.
No doubt.
It has a much more prominent atmosphere. It has great music. These are fantastic puzzles. Like I said, I love rails. I think I'm trying to remember what I can about the Sand Temple, and I believe this Fire Temple is my favorite. The final sections of the Tower of Spirits are some of my favorites from a challenge standpoint, but from an environmental standpoint, Fire Temple probably at the top.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll see if Sand Temple dethrones it for us next week. But yeah, right now this is definitely feeling like a very good, very solid one. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to it, right? Like this one has just got more levels of things happening, and I think that is doing nothing but benefiting the whole experience. And so it's very strong overall. Connor, is there anything you would like to say additionally about this dungeon before we go and start talking about the lead up to the boss and then the boss fight itself?
The final floor with the intertwining rail tracks is hectic.
Yes. Yeah, hectic's a good word for it.
I think.
Oh, random question. Sorry. Have you guys been picking up the stamps along the way?
As many of them as I can, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't go out of my way for them, though.
So, I'm trying to, and I'm not really going out of my way to do a lot of collectibles in this game, but just because I know what the reward is for getting 10 stamps, I want that shield. And
Gotcha.
so I am trying. I did not find the stamp book in the Fire Temple, if there is one.
It's in there is one. It's in one of the rail rooms. I think it's in the final room. And I actually couldn't figure... It's in the first rail room? Okay, I couldn't figure out how to get the rails to take me there.
Yeah, so in the first one, where you can basically be looping around in a circle because you're trying to hit the eyes in a particular order, if you go to where you're supposed to go into the next area, but you don't, instead you hop back on the minecart, in the bottom left-hand corner is a switch that you're supposed to shoot that will divert your cart to the upper left-hand corner where the stamp book is.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I should probably be spending more time trying to actually get 10 stamps and just going out of my way to be like, yes, I'm finding the stamp spot in this area or whatever. I haven't been as intentional about that as I am about some other side quest stuff in other Zelda games. But we're getting towards the end of the game now, so I should probably buckle down on that. But let's go back to our discussion about the final room before the boss, because this room to me was really interesting. We have talked before on this show about how the whole mechanic of not having the boss key in your inventory is one that we're not wild about, right? Like having to carry it around and drop it in a lock or whatever is not our favorite thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this was like a really interesting execution on that, though, right? Like having to basically ferry the key on a separate minecart around an intricate track. And I really like it. I like how intricate it is and how much you have to be paying attention to hitting the right switches at the right time. The only thing that was kind of difficult for me is that I found that it was very difficult to hit the switches at the right time. Like finding the correct timing to get the switches with the bow was difficult for me. Is that an experience that you've had in here before, Connor?
It's a couple of times shooting it just a little bit. I tend to have the issue of shooting it too early than shooting it too late, because if I hit it too late, I usually just don't hit it at all, and then I'm in the lava.
Yeah.
That's fair.
There was the one on the back end. There's like an elevation change where you're up higher on the track, and then you kind of go lower, and then you're able to hit the switch. And I kept shooting over it. Like I was firing at it too early and it wasn't connecting. That happened to me several times. And it's one of those things where it's like perspective in this game is something that I'm still having a hard time grasping, right? Like being able to tell the differences of like I'm up a level from another thing. It's not always completely clear to me when that's happening, and that can lead to some frustrating moments. Obviously, this game doesn't have a 3D slider, and even if it did, we probably wouldn't use it. But
seriously,
elevation is always a challenge when you're dealing with top-down, regardless of whether or not you have the 3D.
Yeah, I agree with that. But overall, I thought that this was a really fun puzzle. How many tries did it take you to get this, Matt?
Probably 4, mostly because I kept mistiming the switches. Like that was my only problem. I knew which ones to hit. I mostly was mistiming the second switch for the cart containing the key. That one got me more often than any of the other ones. I would hit it a little bit too late, and then I would be fine, but the key would go off into the lava.
Yeah, and
so then I'd have to redo it. But I think it took me 3 or 4 times. So not a lot, but a couple. And it was always things I was like, dang it, I messed that up. Not like a issue with the controls or anything. It was a me problem, not a game problem.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where it's like the process of equipping an item and using it in Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, it continues to be like one extra level of operation that kind of can throw things off for me sometimes.
Yep.
Right? I guess it's just the trade-off, right? Because the thing you get in return for that extra level of complexity is more control over the way that you're using the item, right?
Yep.
Like you're just inherently much more precise with this bow once you're actually using it than you are a bow in, say, Link's Awakening, for instance.
Sure.
So it's just it's a give and take sort of situation. But yeah, okay. I think that brings us to the boss fight. The boss, as I said earlier in this temple, I had it pulled up. It's Kragma.
Kragma.
The boss of the fire temple is Kragma, who is a giant one-eyed magma rock monster. In the middle of a giant tall room with a pit of lava in the center. This was the first boss fight that we've had in this game that I felt was really utilizing the perspective between the two screens very well.
Yes, very well.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight of Phantom Hourglass bosses that hasn't carried over very well in Spirit Tracks, but this one was the exception to that, I think. They utilized the split perspective very, very well.
Yeah. And it's so fun to me because it's like, obviously, while you're trying to figure out what to do about this boss, you're having to dodge a whole lot of hits of his giant stone arms and stuff, right? But then once you get past that phase, then you're on more mine carts and you're just kind of shooping around in a circle around the exterior of the arena.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
I really liked the minecart section of the fight where it feels like you're going around targeting weak points. For some reason, it felt very Star Wars Shadow of the Empire. I can't tell you why, but it felt like that to me. I have very sparse memories of that game at this point in my life, but I don't know. That's what I was feeling.
Okay, interesting. Connor, how do you feel about the Kragma fight?
Kragma is so fun. It's probably my favorite boss. Well, not my favorite boss in this game, but as far as the dungeon bosses are concerned, it's definitely my favorite. It seems very epic because of the size and everything that you're doing. This is the only area where I had some difficulty with aiming and perspective. A couple of times where I'd accidentally jump into the lava when I'm trying to jump onto the minecart. And then some challenges with aiming where that's where I'd start getting my challenges with ammo capacity because for some reason, it just wasn't hitting. I don't know if I was just reading the angle on his round body the wrong way. Then every now and again, I'd just barely get it when he'd just a sliver left. It's like, oh, awesome.
Yeah, I think that the perspective of the DS has a hard time with curvature because I experienced the same thing of I swear that arrow should have hit because I was hitting right or I was tapping right where it should have gone. And sometimes it wouldn't, and sometimes it would hit when I didn't think it would have. So I think there's an aspect of curvature that the DS is having problems with. I had the same problem on the path up to Phytops, getting around the circular pillar. So yeah, I think it's just an issue of curvature, but I agree. And I think as fun as this boss fight was, the one problem I had, other than I also accidentally jumped into the lava at least twice, I actually died on this boss fight once. Because I was having a hard time judging where I was safe from his smash attack and where I wasn't. Outside of the one little safe zone over by the minecart is always safe, but I'm trying to run around and get arrows because I'm always out of arrows and I'm safe from that smash. Nope, never mind. No, I'm not. And then he'd hit me and I'd fly off into the lava, so it would do his normal amount of damage plus the lava damage, and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I had a little bit of trouble with this fight, but it was really, really fun. After I died, I seriously debated leaving the dungeon to go back to Goron Village and buy the extra quiver. I almost did, and then I was like, I don't want to get back on that train, so no.
Yeah. I also had ammo economy issues here.
Yeah.
There was twice in this fight. I didn't die in this fight, but there were twice that I got all the way up to the top level and it was time to shoot the eye and I was out of arrows.
That's a bad place to be.
Yep.
Oof.
And then at that point, all you can do is just let him boop you off the track and into and let him grab you,
Yep.
And do it all over again.
Oh, really? That's what happens.
Yeah, that's the only way to get down.
Yeah.
Eesh.
Yep, you just got to take the hit, and then you've got to go farm arrows from rocks on the first level.
Yeah.
Which is nobody's favorite activity to do, I don't think. But
I will say I'm glad that it only takes 2 cycles. At least it only took me 2 cycles. Because I think going a 3rd time up, or even a 4th time up, oh my gosh, would probably have worn out this boss's welcome.
Yeah, I think that just because of how long it takes to go through the whole process, right, of avoid his hands, wait for a stone to drop, drop the tile on the lava, get into the minecart, do that. I think you're absolutely right. It would have really drugged this fight out longer than it needed to be. And so I'm glad it only took twice. Because even with all that, I would say I probably spent more time on this boss than I have any of the ones in the previous temples. So it was good. It was a good balance of time spent in here, and I really appreciated it. Also, going in a circle around the exterior of the arena, it gave me flashbacks to second phase. Crap. I know this boss's name.
Mm-hmm.
Twilight Princess, Arbiter's Grounds.
Oh,
Star-Lord.
Oh, yeah. Star-Lord, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, Star-Lord was a great time. But just kind of going around in a circle around the edge of the thing, and kind of having that kind of chariot run sort of feeling.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. But anyway, Kragma, really, really great boss fight. Enjoyed it very, very much, and a clear standout up until this point. Any final thoughts on the Fire Temple before we get into our next section?
I'm good.
Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and get into part 4, which is Bloopy Trails, where we talk about interesting things that diverted our attention this week. Connor, I'm going to let you go first. And also, since you are a guest on the show and you have not been on any previous episodes this season, you get a special situation where you pretty much get your pick of any Bloopy Trail in the game, any side quest in the game up until this point that you think is fun.
That I think is fun. I've spent a whole lot of time in the one forest town doing the whip minigame. It's a race where you are racing through this kind of big tree thing, and you're just using the whip to go from thing to log to log to log, running up this thing. There's been a couple of times where I've been trying to get particular train parts for treasures and whatnot, and that's where I would farm. Just getting faster and faster times running on that thing. You said you're having trouble getting up to our octopus boss. It's that. It's all that. Just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh all the way up. And I have a lot of fun with it.
And you said where? So is that in the Forest Sanctuary?
It's not the Forest Sanctuary. It's in the town. I forget what it's called in the Forest Realm.
Oh, Whittleton.
Yes, Whittleton.
The town of Whittling.
If you go to the back, there's the place where the stamp booth is. It's in the second screen area, and then you can keep going, cross a gap, and then there's a guy in the real back area that you can go and participate. There's a heart thing involved, I believe. And you also just get treasures that you can just start mining so you can get trains. Have any of you been able to get... have any of you started to substitute train parts?
I have seen the ability, and I don't care enough about it to do it. I had the same thing with the ship in Phantom Hourglass, where I just didn't invest the time into it. I instead just traded it in for rupees and hoarded rupees like a miser.
I will say it is not worth to do it in Phantom Hourglass because it is solely it's specifically designed so that you're supposed to trade with other people to get the ship parts that you want. At least with Spirit Tracks, you can work the random number generator to get the treasures you need to trade in parts.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Matt and I have been on kind of a level with this where it's like I just don't know that I'm feeling like investing the time to customize my train. I should probably actually go look at the different parts and stuff that you can swap out and see if it's just like, oh, I just think this version of the train looks unspeakably cool. And maybe then it would be worth the time to me to mess around with that system. But I've been contextualizing it in the same way that I did the ship in Phantom Hourglass, right? And maybe because of that, I just sort of wrote it off going into this game. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. I haven't even attempted it, and maybe I'm missing out on that. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's fun to see because cosmetic changes are fun. The only true benefit is the opportunity to get a healthier train, which can be particularly useful in some of the later stages. You can still do it with the regular train. You're not going to be up the creek without a paddle, but it's nice.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Getting a few more than 4 hearts. I can definitely see where that would be handy. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe I'll do some research and check into that and see if I can incorporate it into my next week's play session. But regardless, that sounds like a fun mini game to do, so I'll probably go give it a try, just to say that I did it. Yeah, for me, Bloopy Trails this week, it was really the same thing we've been doing the whole time, Matt. It was rabbit collecting, and that's essentially it. Rabbit collecting and stamp collecting. And it's just going back to this kind of recurring point that we've had about Spirit Tracks so far, which is that even putting aside like the collectibles and mini games and stuff, I feel like Spirit Tracks is not a Zelda game that's kind of moving us towards good side quest material as much as some others do, right? Like Link's Awakening, obviously you have to do a lot of that to progress through the story, you know? But a lot of Minish Cap, prime example.
Oh, love Minish Cap's
right.
system. Yep.
All those side characters and the Kinstone system and all those situations, like it was just, there was so much more to dig into there, and I'm just not getting it here. And so, yeah, I mean, and Connor, I don't know if you have any, like, are we just looking in the wrong place? Do you feel like this is
Well, I know the problem, Lyndon.
What?
The problem is neither of us like the train traversal system. It takes too long to get anywhere, so we're not actively seeking anything out. We're not revisiting villages unless we have to. We're not talking to a bunch of people to try to find things to do, because that's going to necessitate spending 15 minutes going back and forth on the train tracks that we don't want to spend doing. Because that's why I'm not doing any of it.
Yeah. The core of the reason is that because a lot of the bonus stuff, the big side quest stuff that you can do, is locked behind hidden sections of track that you can't unlock unless you get the necessary force gems to unlock those areas. There's a big mini game where you are saving townsfolk from the pirates in the ocean realm, which is a fun whole ordeal that you do where you're blocking arrows and taking people out and then riding through mine carts again and shooting pirates off competing mine carts so you can get out safely. It's really fun, but it requires you to help the right person either get to the right location or deliver the right materials. And yeah, that gets boring if you're not in the habit of being a completionist.
Yeah, I mean, all of that sounds really fun.
That sounds like a really cool Bloopy trail that I would like to do. But man, do I not want to go get force gems? Like, I just don't.
Yeah, it's really tough. And like I have seen one or two of those opportunities, right? Like where there's like a Nanuki who's like, help me deliver this to this place.
Yeah,
right.
We need some wood to rebuild the fence. Well, yeah, I could go to Whittleton and deliver their wood all the way up to the Snow Realm, or I could save myself 15 minutes of traversal that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That was the one that I took care of when I was waiting for the Mega Ice. I went back he was like, hey, we need someone to build this and we need the wood. All right, well, I got nothing else I'm technically supposed to do. So I spent like, oh gosh, how long was that episode? Like half an hour? Something like that 27 minutes to go grab them and bring them over. He bid the thing. I got the force gem. I went to Snowdrift Station, it's called, in the very northwest corner of the Snow Realm. And it was a decent challenge. There was a time limit race on ice. I had several battle situations running on top of ice and fighting the water things that pop out. All of these different things so I could get my hints to discover how to get at this hidden treasure. And it's a fun time, but it's blocked behind a 15-minute train ride between 4 different destinations.
Yeah. And the thing that's tough about that is that, like, look, if the train was just a little faster, but no other top-down Zelda game requires you to spend that much time getting from one place to another in the overworld, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Like, that's the problem, It's like this kind of these sort of like fetch quest mini games, side quests, right? Where it's like the Anuki wants you to help fix his fence, right? Well, in Minish Cap, if that were to happen, then I would talk to that NPC. I would then go somewhere else in the overworld, someplace that I could probably warp to, But even if I couldn't warp to it, it's not going to take me 15 minutes to walk there.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking 10 minutes max beginning to end, not 15 minutes of traversal on top of however long it takes you to complete the reward that you get. And this train needs to be 3 times faster than it is. Like that just is true. It's so slow and it takes so long to get everywhere. And like, while I understand that they tried to fill the space with like cool things to do, catching bunnies, shooting enemies, switching tracks, like whatever, but at some point you do that often enough, it's just not that fun anymore. And it's just I just want to get one place to another.
There are more warp points, but again, they are locked
behind
force gems. So it gets easier if you're diligent with them, but if you're not interested in the first place, then why would you bother?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And on the subject of the warp gates, I still don't completely understand how these things work. I have not used
one.
I have not used a warp gate at any point in this game.
I went back to see Linebeck to sell some treasure, and there's a warp gate near him. So the force gem that you get from Carbon, whoever the one last week was. Yeah, Carbon. The force gem you get from Carbon opens up the warp gate that's behind or to the south of Linebeck's shop, and it takes you to Snow Realm near the bridge builder's hut.
Okay.
So I used that one, and literally you just drive into it while holding the whistle down, and it creates a little portal that you go through.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You hit the gem that's above the gate, which activates it. And then you blow the whistle, and the gate opens.
Yep.
I feel like all that I have seen are gates with no gem.
That's because you haven't gotten the force gem for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Is you get the force gem, it activates the portal. There you go. Off you go.
All right. Well,
it tends to be that you have to. One of the two is currently not present because you don't have the spirit tracks to connect that gate to the other sets.
So anyway, I didn't really do much Bloopy Trail this week either, Lyndon. Just to kind of round out this section for us, I'm gonna go revisit the Knock 'em Down station in Hyrule Castletown because that one was fun. So I'm gonna go revisit that next week, and I'm gonna try to get enough stamps to get the Antique Shield or Shield of Antiquity.
Yeah.
Because I want that. Apparently, if you get 15 stamps, you get the engineer's outfit, and you can replace your green guard uniform with the engineer's outfit. So
yes, you can.
I don't know if that's worth tracking down 15 stamps for you or not, but that is a possibility.
I might. I don't know. I really like the engineer's outfit. I might do that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That sounds fun.
I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling.
Cool.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to part 5, which is Z targeting, where we lock onto fascinating characters or enemies that we happen to cross. Connor, it goes to you first again. If you had to pick a character who you find to be truly excellent in Spirit Tracks up until this point, who would it be?
Zelda's the obvious answer. Random thing I was noticing, this is literally not. This has almost nothing to do with anything that's going on. So when I play my games, when I'm streaming or recording, I like to voice everything as best as my amateur voice thing can do. And I've noticed that I think I've given all the Gorons Kermit the Frog voices. I'm just going through. It's like, what in the world are you doing here? It's like, oh my gosh, that's a Kermit voice. What am I doing?
I can see it. I don't think you're crazy.
Okay, good. I really like Angine. This is where the plot of the actual game itself really starts to take steam and pick up steam. The
train pun.
The intermediaries.
Hey. Yep.
Yeah, more train puns. You see what I'm doing here? Pun unintended.
They just keep going. They never stop.
Pun intended and then absolutely intended. That's how I live my life. Before, it was just, you've come back. Yes, the next one is available for you. Go get it. But now it's, oh, Björn, finally we see you again. It's been so long. How are you? I've come back to take the power that is mine. You were always so obstinate. Why in the world would you? It's like, oh, there's actual backstory here involved. I'm intrigued.
It's definitely a ramp up of like the narrative situation that I did appreciate, especially because it's like we had such a cool hint about some of these characters early in the game, right? Like Cole and Burn, and the extent to which, like, why do they want to free Malladus? You know, all of these things. And I was kind of getting to the point where I was worried we weren't going to check back in on any of that
before getting to the finale.
Right, yeah, before we're fighting Malladus or something. You
no
know?
story for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you were so curious and you don't get anything. So I was really happy to see this here.
Cole's not worth it.
Oh, that's disappointing. I loved
sucks.
Cole and his 2 top hats.
Cole in his perfect disguise. How did anyone not see through him?
He's like, whoa, you were evil the whole time? Yeah, no, for sure. So anyway, all that being said, I really appreciated this whole little cutscene as well. And it's like, it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, but, you know, I have been... What I would say that I've been invested in this story from the beginning. Whatever issues I might be having with Spirit Tracks mechanically, I have been here for the story that it's telling, which I don't think is necessarily was true of Phantom Hourglass for me. Would you say that's true for you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think this week helped a lot. And my Z targeting pick is Burn for that same interaction. Like I
Burn was going to be mine too. I got to think of someone else now.
Ha! Screw you. I just really like getting motivation and motivation of personal power, and like I spent my life devoted to these deities and they never did anything for me, so I'm just gonna take what I believe is mine, and like blah blah blah, like evil, but I see where you're coming from. Still evil, see where you're coming from. Like
okay.
So
it's an understandable motivation, even if it's not a good one.
Exactly. Unlike Ganondorf in Twilight Princess, whose motivation made no sense, nor did his plan. So, like, at least Burn has this going for him where he's got understandable motivation. He's got a plan. He's working towards the fulfillment of said plan, and it all meshes together and works well. I get it. It makes logical sense.
So there you go. Burn 1, Twilight Princess Ganondorf 0. Yeah.
Ganondorf, I feel, in Twilight Princess is not so much a mastermind as he is a driving force. He is the god that Zant has worshipped. He gives Zant the power, and Zant is like, yes, now I can do all of this stuff, so I'm going to do all this stuff. And Ganondorf's like, yes, perfect. You go do all that stuff. I have the power I need to come back, and then I'll just rule everything. He was shoehorned into this game.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. No questions. If you're doing Burn, Matt, then I guess I'm going to go with the Obi-Wan to Burn's Anakin, right? Which is Angine.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. So Angine does not have the high ground. She's
no, decidedly not.
Yeah, she's much shorter than Burn.
She comes up to his knees.
She's tiny.
Well, maybe if she just got out of her train wheelchair and stood up on her actual feet, that we now know she
to
has.
His waist. Trust me, she's not that much taller.
No, I like this little showdown moment, the master and the apprentice, this whole thing. It was a good moment, and I'm excited to see it explored a little bit further. I still think it's so interesting. I mean, Angine continues to fill like an Impa role in this story, to the point where I'm kind of just like, maybe we just should have called you Impa. I still feel that way.
Impa, yes. Yeah. Impa would have been better. It wouldn't have been a train pun, but it would have been better.
It would not have been a train pun.
Oh my gosh, I just realized that's a train pun. Ah!
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy we could do this for you, Connor.
Yay! That's awesome. Intend your puns.
It's layers on layers on layers. It's great.
It's so good.
So there you go.
Freaking good.
Angine is going to be my Z targeting, and I'm hoping that Angine doesn't have an even more badass moment next week or something. Although I guess technically the rules only forbid us from choosing Link, Zelda, and the main enemy more than once per season. So
That's true.
I guess I could pick Angine again if I was really feeling it.
You totally could. Yeah.
Anyway. Cool. All right. Well, I think that brings us to, finally, part 6, which is our final thoughts, in which Matt gets to wrap up this section of the game in as succinct a way as he can think to do.
So we start off this section back in the Tower of Spirits, enjoying some new powers that we get with Phantom Zelda and a unique suite of puzzles that push us to challenge our intellect and our puzzle-solving abilities. Moving on into another set of fetch questy side stuff that helps us open up the Fire Realm. We get to meet the Goron people and solve their problems with spewing lava, deathly plants, lots of fire keys, and then transport some ice from the Anuki village back over there, and leading into the Fire Temple, which is the strongest temple so far in Spirit Tracks, enjoying lots of great puzzles, good combat, finally getting the bow, which is a truly phenomenal item, especially on a touchscreen platform, culminating in a really, really good boss fight that utilizes the split perspective that we liked from Phantom Hourglass so much to its fullest extent for the first time in Spirit Tracks. All in all, moving on to our next section of game, looking forward to what it has to bring to the table.
Well done, as always, Matt. That brings us to the end of the Sacred Realms Rundown for this week. We will be back next week with another installment of the Sacred Realms Rundown, talking about another section of game. Connor, this has been a fun one.
I've enjoyed myself quite much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is about the time of the show where we would let you do your thing to tell everybody where they can follow you. If you have a presence online that if you want people to find you on the internet, this is where you can tell them where they can do that.
I would absolutely love for people to find me on the internet, if at all possible. The handle that you will find me at online pretty much everywhere is my online pseudonym, Conterez, Conterez. Like I said, I manage the Zelda Universe podcast, so if you want to hop over to Zelda Universe and jump onto there, you will find me hosting a suite of other Zelda Universe contributors as we talk about Zelda in a whole bunch of different perspectives, with our Zelda movie discussion coming out in a couple of weeks. Aside from that, I have my YouTube channel, which is devoted to The Legend of Zelda. I've been working on a video essay tribute as my own personal tribute to the Zelda franchise over the last, almost 10 years. I think I've more or less finished up with that as far as I want to go with it, and I'm going to be moving in a more narrative direction, looking at fleshing out the stories of all the different Zelda games. And you can see me, you can come and join me on Twitch. I'm usually on there like pretty much four times a week. I work with The Legend of Zelda on Mondays. I play Genshin Impact on Wednesdays. And then I'm generally playing some form of RPG or story-driven narrative on the weekends. You can find me on Twitch at Conterez as well.
Excellent. Highly recommend everyone go check out all of those different places that Connor is producing content. Zelda Universe, obviously, we always like to send people over there because they're a great partner to us. But Twitch streams and all that stuff, it sounds like a really great time. What story-driven narrative game are you working on right now? I
am currently revisiting Golden Sun. I'm just about to finish the original game, and we're moving on to the second half of the game, which is Golden Sun: The Lost Age. That's where I am right now. I don't have a PlayStation 5, so I unfortunately can't jump onto Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just yet. I will have to wait until it comes out on PC, but I'll be playing Remake again sometime in the near future.
Nice, very nice. Golden Sun, I know Josh has been chipping his way through that as well at the moment. The one that I've got coming my way is I've actually got a boxed copy of Pokemon Heart Gold that's going to be arriving at my house in the next year.
Wow. There we go.
Yes. So I lost my copy somewhere, and without getting too much into why I'm tracking one down now, I might be doing a little bit of content around Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver in the not too distant future.
There we go.
Real nice.
So
Sacred Realms spinoff.
Yeah, Sacred Realms spinoff. So look forward to that. But regardless, I love that game so much. It's my favorite Pokemon game, and I wanted to have the box to put on the shelf in addition to having a new copy of the game.
There you go.
Yes, can't wait to get back into that. But anyway, Connor, seriously, thank you so much. It's been really a great time. And yeah, as we keep going on into more games and new experiences, we'll hit you up and we'll see if we can get you in for something in the future. I don't know exactly what we're playing next. We haven't figured that out yet, but our list
It's probably about poll time.
It's getting pretty close. Yeah, it is getting close. So we'll sort that out soon. But the list of games we have in front of us is much shorter than the ones we have behind us. But we've got nothing but winners left to go. I mean, we've still got
some would say the best of the batch.
Yeah, we've still got the Oracles. We've got Majora's Mask. We've got Tears of the Kingdom, and we're going to do an Ocarina of Time Master Quest season. We started the whole thing with Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
I mean, you already did the best, so I can't join in more Skyward Sword talk, but I absolutely would love to come and talk about any of them. So hit me up whenever. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Matt and I have not played Master Quest before, so this is going to be a completely new experience for us.
The game is the same. The dungeons are quite the experience.
I'm very excited. I have that game basically memorized like the back of my hand, so I'm excited to have a new experience with it.
Oh, 100%. Cool. But anyway, we'll catch up with you before too long, Connor. But until then, Matt, I think it's time to wrap up this pod. We're actually, we're at 2.5 hours right now, which means with plot recap, we're pushing 3 on this bad boy.
Yeah, we are. Good episode.
Damn, look at us go.
Good episode.
All right, y'all. If you enjoyed today's show and you would like a little extra Sacred Realms in your life, you can head over to patreon.com/Sacred Realms Pod and become a patron. If you've got no rupees, it's not a problem. 5-star Apple Podcast reviews are a great free way to support us. More reviews means that more people see our show. That makes us very happy Hylians. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sacred Realms Pod for updates on the podcast and for behind-the-scenes action. Sacred Realms will be back next Wednesday with our thoughts on Spirit Tracks Chapter 5. We'd love for you to play along with us and to share your thoughts on our social channels. Spirit Tracks can unfortunately be played in only 2 places. You can either get a cartridge and play it on a Nintendo DS or 3DS, or if you were lucky enough to get it on the Wii U Virtual Console before that service shut down, then you can play it there. Sorry about that. We wish it was available more places. It is not. But in the meantime, may your hearts be full. May your arrows never miss. We'll catch y'all next time.
Yeah.
Sacred Realms is an independent, listener-supported podcast, which is produced, edited, and mixed by me, Lyndon Willoughby. Business operations are handled by Matt Willoughby. Our music is generously provided by Darknuck and is available to listen to on Spotify. Finally, we'd like to thank Nintendo for continuing to create such exceptional and innovative experiences.